Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. The Great Voyage of the People. Unlock the Dreadnought Battleship at the beginning. Chapter 81. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Warning, warning, the City of Blue encounters a white curse attack. The whole city enters a first-level police state. At this time, the ear-piercing alarm sounded, and the alarm bells were even louder in the giant city supported by the giant pillars in the distance. Look back. The sky was corroded, and the originally azure starry sky began to distort and deform when it came into contact with the gray-white mist, like melted wax dripping down into a dirty liquid. The ocean twisted and solidified in the gray-white mist, and the clear blue water became extremely viscous, as if it had been mixed with colorful latex paint. The sudden change made everyone present stunned. At this moment, it seemed that the end of the world was approaching. Have they ever seen such a terrifying scene? On the contrary, those ship monsters with teeth and claws swam happily in the viscous and dirty sea water without hindrance. When the stickiness dissipated, the seawater seemed to have been completely transformed, leaving only a light grayish white, like fluid from some kind of abscess. Chen Yang, I see, this is the ruined corner of the Azure City, cut and separated in a special space. What do you mean? The Azure City is destroyed. I don't rule out this possibility. It's just because the special mechanism that the Azure City is still running preserves all of this. Let's go. Get out of here. We don't want Azure City anymore. You use the Predator trading network to send us all out. The girl was terrified. Seeing her so frightened for the first time, it was as if the deepest fear in her heart reappeared in the world. The girl tugged at Chen Yang's motionless arm, and turned her head in confusion. You won't stay to die, will you? I don't know why, but I always feel that the Azure City hasn't been destroyed yet. What nonsense are you talking about? You don't understand the Grey Curse at all. You don't understand what the Grey Curse is. Do you know that my grandfather, my father and mother were all involved in an inextricable abyss because of investigating the truth about the Grey Curse? Do you want to be like them too? Facing the question, Chen Yang looked at her clear eyes with confusion. Although I don't know what happened to you, I can't retreat today. Once I retreat, I will retreat again and again. Where is the end? Say it. Chen Yang stuffed his Predator badge into her hand. If you get a chance, just leave. Hey, Chen Yang, are you crazy? The girl yelled anxiously. Admiral Orf, please persuade him quickly, he is going to die. Orf smiled, and touched his gray beard with his right hand. Old man, I should have died in that orphanage for the elderly that no one cares about. But I didn't. I have seen the endless sea and met the leader who doesn't dislike me in my incomplete years. My Orf life is worth it. Since the leader wants to go crazy, I'll accompany him one more time, Lan. The girl gritted her teeth and turned to look at Xiaolu next to her. Hey, can you always persuade him? Little Green didn't take it seriously. I am the little green princess of the fleet, and I am destined to accompany my fleet into the future or die. I don't want to go back to the stinky ditch, back to the shack where there is no hope. Let's go. Green is going to fight. After all, he still didn't forget to turn his head and make a face at the girl, slightly. The girl froze in place, holding the Marauder badge that Chen Yang had thrust into him. If you want to die, you will die yourself. Don't worry, this admiral will offer incense to you every year from now on. Goodbye. No. See you again. Say it. She turned and walked away without the slightest hesitation. Soon, Captain Command Room. Orf stood shoulder to shoulder with Chen Yang. Leader, maybe she is right. What's right? I, Chen Yang, am I a person who is greedy for life and afraid of death? I have my own considerations. Beside, Little Green lay quietly on the porthole, staring at the fleet outside the window. Her little head was wondering what was going on. Green girl, if you don't get off the boat this time, you won't have a chance next time. Chen Yang joked. HMPH, I want you to take care of it. Xiaolu pursed her lips, expressing that she did not want to speak. At this time, there has been fighting in the frontmost theater. The densely packed sailing warships fired with all their strength, and collided with the frantically rushing ship monsters. Help, the strange ship is eating people. Run, run. Oh, my body can't move. The fleet, which was still full of confidence, was defeated in an instant, and was swallowed up by the attacks of these strange ships. After these strange ships eat the new ship, they will turn the new ship into a part of their own body. constantly growing, just like a living thing. Fire! Chen Yang roared. In an instant, thousands of guns were fired, and the fleet's shells were poured out like money. For this battle, he prepared 3 times the amount of ammunition. So, at this time, the artillery density of the fleet was also unprecedented. The artillery fell, forcibly plowing a passage of blood and fire in the gray-white tumbling and expanding mist. Then, the artillery fire began to extend, moving in a further direction. The destroyer retreated decisively after releasing the mines and torpedoes. The fully fired fleet completely suppressed the expanding gray area in just a few seconds. "Did you make it?" Little Green asked in surprise. "It's still early." Chen Yang just finished speaking. The gray area in front suddenly swelled, and the huge monster ship with a height of 100 feet opened its mouth and roared towards Chen Yang's fleet. "System, are you done? The white mist is coming." The reason why Chen Yang didn't leave was not for no reason. What is the scariest thing about the white curse? Those grotesque pterosaur bats. A monster ship with teeth and claws. Or this huge fusion monster with a size of several hundred feet. No, it's not, it's white mist. 0. The white mist is the most terrifying trump card of the white curse. This thing is dead when touched. Once it is wrapped in white snow, it will be corroded by that strange force without accident, and it will be completely reduced to a puppet without the power to resist. Or be transformed into that kind of monster ship with teeth and claws, or it can only be swallowed by the monster ship and become the food for the opponent's evolution. Theoretically, as long as the erosion of the Grey Curse is blocked, the Grey Curse is nothing at all. Can those mutated ship monsters touch the heavily armored battleships covered in steel and iron? Chen Yang's whole card is the system, or in other words, the hyperspace core swallowed by the previous system. Using the special infinite plane latitude characteristic of the Klein bottle, the Grey Curse is isolated from the battleship at the space level. It can be immune to the influence of the Grey Curse on him in disguise. Ding! The hyperspace Klein temporary defense barrier has been constructed and lasts for 1 hour. The host, please pay attention to the time. When a small translucent Klein bottle fell into his hands, Chen Yang was overjoyed. Is it finally here? The super defense beyond the physical level, although only 1 hour, is enough. The whole ship listens to my order and is ready to advance at full speed, aiming at the gray core in the deepest part of the gray garden. Voice just fell. The retreating fleets were stunned. Everyone is retreating, only Chen Yang's fleet is moving in the opposite direction. Is he crazy? Such a strange idea flickered in everyone's mind. Distance. On the high throne, the translucent figure finally lowered his head and noticed the Chen Yang fleet advancing in the opposite direction. He couldn't help but let out an exclamation, and his eternal expression also changed slightly. Is he crazy? Is he going to die? The retreating Blood River fleet expressed doubts. Chen Yang, this guy found a way to crack the gray fog. Qi Qian squinted his eyes in the new Century Grand Fleet. He tried, it was impossible. These terrifying gray fogs are death upon touch, and there is no way to escape. Where is this trial? It is hell. Captain Qi Qian, let's get out of here, we can't keep it here anymore. Aoshan was terrified. Seeing Chen Yang launch a counter-charge before, he followed suit. As a result, the few ironclad ships under his command suffered heavy losses. Looking back, those battleships that have completely mutated into ship monsters are opening their mouths, devouring the destroyed ships around them. Qi Qian looked back at the figure on the tall throne. It stands to reason. At this point in the trial, there should be a turning point, but he didn't make any moves. 680. Could it be that guy Chen Yang? Turn your head. Chen Yang's fleet rushed into the gray mist without fear of death, while the other fleets retreated back to the board area in embarrassment. At the moment when the gray fog hits, the anti-aircraft tower that previously served as air defense suddenly lit up with azure light. At this time, the white jade pillars attract the water to roll back, and the waves gather to form a thin layer of translucent blue shield outside the chessboard. The shield and the gray mist collided together, meaning that no one could do anything about it for a while. Blocked. This is the end. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the man on the high throne. The other party stared at the gray fog area with great interest, as if they saw something interesting. Defensive countdown. 30 minutes, all defenders are requested to persist for at least 30 minutes. The steward's voice sounded again, making these warships that retreated into the chessboard area want to scold their mothers. Again, however, the next second, the sound of gunfire from the gray fog area stunned everyone. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of cannons rumbled, and shells continued to explode in the outer foggy area. With the strange screams of those strange ships, there are still battleships alive in the gray fog area. People are weird. The gray fog torn apart by the Black Fleet forcibly tore out a translucent channel in the gray fog area. At the same time, aboard the King, Chen Yong pressed the console with one hand, and invisible ripples started from his flagship. The ever-changing and twisting barrier enveloped the entire fleet in just 1/100th of a second. The moment he rushed into the gray fog area, he propped up an indestructible shield for the fleet, the Klein barrier. The gray mist rolls and erodes, rushing over the infinitely extending plain, as if there is no end. After the gray mist area lost the most powerful means of killing, these mutated monster ships were nothing to fear. Fire and smash all these things that want to get close. Chen Yong is very satisfied with the effect of Klein's defensive wall. Even the curse of gray mist can't penetrate in and corrode his battleship. Directly separated from the space level. From the outside to the inside becomes infinitely far, but on the contrary, from the inside to the outside becomes infinitely near. The shells are unrestricted and even gain more powerful acceleration than before. The artillery with 50 times the caliber just produced the effect of 70 times the caliber. Faster exit speed, faster flight speed and stronger penetration ability. With a salvo, the monster ship standing in front of it was completely pierced, and the powerful kinetic energy tore apart the hull. With the blessing of the infinitely expanding Klein defense wall, the shells cannot be affected by the gray fog. Instead, due to the explosion, they obtained the effect of shattering the plane space. The torn space fragments are extremely destructive to the core of the monster ship. This was a surprise that Chen Yong never thought of. After the shells added by the defensive wall shattered the core of the monster ship lost its special ability of resurrection and completely fell into pieces. The indomitable monster ships are also a meal. For many years, the strange ship that would only increase but not decrease is now really blown up. In the depths of the gray mist, the huge monster with a height of 100 feet roared. All the strange ships seemed to have heard the call, and they all rushed towards Chen Yang's fleet. Even the monster ships that had already reached the chessboard area and were about to attack the chessboard retreated one after another, threatening to tear Chen Yang's fleet into pieces. "Get ready for the shock. Torpedo ready," Orf yelled. The huge rear fleet began to turn, directing its strongest firepower to the rolling monster ships. Fire! The gray mist shook and fired a round of salvo amidst the roar of the fleet. Boom, boom, boom. 10 kilometers away, it roared like thunder, and the sound of explosions resounded through the sky. The V-type destroyers that were too late to return to the defensive circle were instantly submerged. Although the Klein space wall can effectively defend against the fog curse, it has no effect on the physical attacks of these strange ships. After all, it is an infinitely diluted Klein planar space defense, and it is very rare to be able to block the erosion of gray fog. More than a dozen V-type destroyers were surrounded by densely packed monster ships, frantically gnawing at the small steel bodies of the destroyers. Torpedo, release. Too late to be sentimental. The fleet torpedo salvo, the target is those destroyers who have no time to wait. The flames of the explosion soared into the sky, and hundreds of heavy torpedoes sent the destroyer and the surrounding monster ships into the sky. This blow wiped out at least hundreds of monster ships. Fire! The sound of the cannon began to sound, and the main guns were fired one by one to ensure uninterrupted firepower and continuously suppress the surging monster ships. The vanguard marched forward without hesitation, forcibly rushing out of a passage paved with corpses of strange ships in the gray fog area. Penetrate the defenses of the monster ships with the sharpest sharp knives, only piercing the enemy's heart. Although everyone couldn't see clearly what happened in the gray fog area, the fierce cannon fire told them that Chen Yong was still fighting and hadn't flinched. They went from shock at the beginning to numbness later. They couldn't understand, what method did Chen Yong use to block the erosion of the gray fog? Could it be that he is the son of the Blue City Lord, so he can't be affected by the gray fog? Although this kind of reason is ridiculous, they can't help but think about it. Otherwise, it is impossible to explain the reason why Chen Yong has entered the gray fog area for so long and has not been eroded. What they can do is very limited, they can only stay in the chessboard area protected by the blue barrier. Can only watch helplessly. Leader, I found it. The core of the gray fog spread. Where? Chen Yang was overjoyed. After entering the gray fog area, they were trying to find the starting point for the expansion of the gray fog curse. For this reason, many destroyers and even submarines were sacrificed, and almost the entire sea area was searched. In the southeast corner, the gray fog spreading there is the thickest, and the defenses are fortified. Several destroyers have passed through and been destroyed. Very good. The entire fleet obeys the order, abandons defense, and attacks the southeast corner with all its strength. With Chen Yang's order, all the fleets turned again, and the artillery fire began to extend towards the southeast corner. Those strange ships seemed to realize something, and instantly became more crazy and violent, desperately wanting to block the advance of the fleet. Leader, we must make a quick decision, our time is running out. Subconsciously glanced at the countdown. Klein's hyperspace defense wall still had 30 minutes to last. 30 minutes, enough. 98th goal, fog core. At the same time, there was finally movement in the chessboard area. It seemed that the crisis in the city had just been quelled, and the reinforcements arrived here with great difficulty. Streamlined blue warships slowly sailed out of the city wall and entered the chessboard area. These battleships covered with water ripples appear flat and low, like a flatboat floating on the water. The displacement is not large, only 2,000 or 3,000 tons. The bow main gun also looks a little strange. It is not a ferocious steel structure, but it looks like it is carved from translucent ice. On the side of the hull are densely packed auxiliary guns, forming a circle, at least 40 or 50. The roof of the ship is slightly raised, supporting the corrugated shield. The moment everyone saw these battleships, a name naturally appeared in their minds: Qinglin-class frigate. This is the battleship of the Azure City, showing its true colors in front of everyone. These frigates are neatly arranged, and more than 1,000 ships are quickly assembled. Then, under the push of the big hand on the throne, these corrugated frigates rushed out of the blue barrier and rushed into the gray fog area. The surrounding gray fog instantly encircled and suppressed it, but was blocked by the continuously flipping ripple shield. Layers of refreshed shields corrode one layer and refresh one layer. As long as the ocean water is not completely polluted, they are equivalent to having infinite ripple shields. These frigates spray high-pressure water rays with extremely high penetrating power. Everyone saw with their own eyes that a ship monster was quickly cut in half by the water rays. Except that the range is only 1,000 meters, the power is not small at all. The secondary guns are erosive water cannons. I saw water patterns rippling from the muzzle, and after a brief brewing, azure water bombs were ejected. These water bombs are extremely erosive, and after touching the ship monster, they penetrated into the ship monster's body like stitches. 3 seconds later, the infiltrated water bomb exploded inside the ship monster. In the torn hull, the core of the strange ship intends to shrink and revive. The second erosive water cannon struck, enveloping the black core. The core soon lost its activity and sank to the bottom of the sea powerlessly. These Qinglin-class frigates look weak, but their combat effectiveness is not weak at all. The special shields that can resist the erosion of the gray fog alone can make them become the vanguard force to protect the blue city before the curse of the gray fog spreads completely. After destroying the ship monster that intends to approach the barrier, the tails of these frigates began to eject a large number of colored bubbles. After these bubbles came into contact with the gray fog, they began to devour the gray fog crazily, until the colored bubbles turned into white bubbles, and then fell heavily into the water, like balls floating on the sea surface. As the bubbles advanced, the white cursed mist also began to recede layer by layer. At this time, in the depths of the white mist ahead, there was another fierce cannon sound. And this time it was more intense than last time. This Chen Yang is still alive. Everyone standing in the safe zone has complicated thoughts. Worried that Chen Yang is really dead, but also worried that he will not die. The booming cannon sounded again, indicating that he was not dead yet, and was still fighting in the gray area. At the same time, Chen Yang's fleet has approached the southeast corner. He is launching an impact desperately. The 100-foot-tall behemoth had returned to defense, dived into the bottom of the water, then leapt high, and slapped heavily on a Dreadnought-class battleship. Boom! The heavy body collided fiercely with the steel-framed battleship. KKKK. The Dreadnought-class battleship creaked unbearably. After all, the battleship with a displacement of more than 10,000 tons was overwhelmed and was overturned on the sea on the spot. Chen Yang clenched his fists. This Dreadnought-class battleship was one of the first Dreadnought-class battleships he summoned. Now watching it being sunk helplessly, it is naturally not a feeling in my heart. Set fire to me, Chen Yang roars. That monster was also extremely shrewd. After destroying this Dreadnought-class battleship, it decisively dived into the water, preparing to launch the next wave of raids. It is clear that a frontal collision is not Chen Yang's match at all. The huge body rolled under the water, leaving the bombing area before the naval gun fell. The slower torpedoes didn't even have time to lock on, and this monster kept wandering around the fleet. After dragging the remnant of the Dreadnought battleship into the sea water, the monster began to devour and absorb frantically. When it rushed out of the sea again, 5 dual-mounted main guns had already grown out of its body. Boom! The main guns fired, targeting Chen Yang's flagship. Full left rudder. Orf roared, and the battleship turned quickly, successfully avoiding 80% of the scattered shells before they fell. However, there were still a few shells falling on the Koenig. The 305mm artillery shell exploded on the battleship, and a secondary gun was blown away on the spot. Fortunately, the King's skin is rough and fleshy, and the naval guns on the Intrepid can't penetrate its armor, so it took this blow hard. Fire! Fire! Chen Yang roared. After the battleship completed its turn, waiting for the opponent to fill in the gap, the battleship's main guns had already completed their turn. Boom 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 boom. The warship spits out fire and launches a counterattack with other warships. Hundreds of high-explosive bombs exploded on the monster's body, and the shattered space defense tore apart the gray fog on its body for body protection, hurting its roots. It's going to dive. The whole ship launches torpedoes. The torpedoes that had been prepared a long time ago were ejected directly, and some warships had already launched the prepared torpedoes when the two sides bombarded each other just now. In the next second, the explosion flooded the sea area in front, and the water broke out together. The huge monster let out a strange scream, finally revealing the long-protected core behind it. Core, look, it's the core. Xiaolu danced excitedly, without the sense of urgency of having just experienced life and death. All battleships aim at the core and hit me hard. Chen Yang grinned, finally willing to come out. Now that you show up, don't go back. The core is like gray eyeballs that extrude and grow 480 degrees, growing on this ocean cliff like a parasite. The protruding mouths around it continuously spit out white mist-like spores. Chen Yang doesn't know what the gray curse is, and few people have seen its true face. Just when Chen Yang locked onto the strange-looking core, only gray eyeballs turned towards Chen Yang. The gray water ripples around these eyeballs twisted, as if something was brewing. No, it's going to attack, shoot me. With one order, the battleships rushing up to this point fired 1,000 guns at once, firing out all the shells that had just been loaded. At the moment when the explosion sounded, a dangerous gray trace flashed away from the bottom of the water, cutting from the bottom of the sea to the sky. Wherever it passed, the sea water was distorted by gray lines into an extremely filthy appearance. The traces across the sky could not be dissipated for a long time. The explosion distorted the cut line, otherwise the line would have cut the King under Chen Yang, not the hapless Wyoming-class battleship beside him. After the nearby Wyoming-class battleship was hit by the gray line, countless pustules bulged on the steel battleship, and the hull mutated, alienating towards the ship monster. Chen Yang decisively pressed the remote control, directly detonating the remote control bomb installed in his ammunition compartment. Bang! The constantly alienating battleship stopped abruptly at this moment, and within a tenth of a second, the ammunition exploded, tearing the entire battleship into countless pieces. In the face of possible changes, Chen Yang has already made advance preparations. He has installed remote control bombs in the ammunition depots of each battleship. Once a battleship is corroded by the fog, the ammunition depots will be detonated immediately to prevent further losses. Chen Yang was also afraid for a while, if the battleship attack caused the fog core to shift the attack direction, the consequences would be disastrous. That gray line can actually penetrate Klein's defense wall, which is really unimaginable. Fortunately, the core was completely covered by artillery fire after only one blow, and the mountain walls it was attached to collapsed in the explosion, and the fragile core was shattered into slag. Without the support of the core, those berserk monster ships seemed to have lost their souls. In the last second, it was rushing towards the fleet in a mighty manner, and in the next second it began to disintegrate, scattered into slag. The 100-foot-tall fusion ship monster also began to disintegrate the moment its core disintegrated. Layer by layer, it is hard to imagine how many battleships it swallowed. There were rusty ironclad ships, dusty sail wooden ships, and even ancient ships made of no visible materials. With the disintegration of this monster, it was dissected layer by layer in front of everyone. Finally, the monster sank to the bottom of the sea with a final howl, completely disappearing from sight. Finished, Orf muttered to himself. Sudden, in the sea area ahead, a strange ray of light is lit up. This ray of light is constantly shrinking and expanding, and it can explode at any time. Get down. Realizing what happened, Chen Yang screamed, and pulled Orf and Xiaolu to the deck with all his strength. Next second, the dark and evil gray light exploded completely. It shredded the distorted and polluted sea water, and even dispersed the dense white mist in an instant. The gray light from the explosion swept across Chen Yang's fleet like time frozen for thousands of years. At this moment, the power of erosion reached a peak. The air outside was vibrating, and only a piercing hum could be heard. All the sailors lying on the ground covered their ears with all their strength, and endured the final release like the howling of a wronged soul. This process lasted about 30 seconds, but it consumed all of Chen Yang's Klein space defense that could last for 30 minutes. The gray light swept across the fleet, causing the surface steel structure to corrode and rust quickly. A glance at 10,000 years, even just for a moment, still caused Chen Yang's fleet to suffer a heavy blow. The situation is not good. Orf looked out of the window. The surface of the hull was covered with a gray and rusty fleet, and his face changed slightly. Quick, check the operation of each part of the battleship. When the gray light completely calmed down, the fog cleared, and even the polluted gray sea area became a little clearer. Head, according to the inspection, more than 80% of the warships are affected by the gray light, the corrosion marks are serious, and the rifling of most of the naval guns is already unusable. Chen Yang slammed his fist on the wall. This is a big loss. These battleships were only exposed for less than a few seconds, and almost all of them returned to the factory for repairs early. Fine. Good news. Congratulations to all the testers who have passed the test. Please return to the chessboard area for points settlement. When these words sounded, Chen Yang knew that everything was over. It was not in vain for him to work so desperately, rushing into the gray fog area regardless of the danger, and successfully destroyed the core. Although the process is tortuous, the ending is always good. Facing the breeze and blue waves, the fleet dragging its remains returned to the chessboard area. Qi Qinzue and the others were stunned. It was hard to imagine what the fleet had experienced in the gray fog. He looked so embarrassed, as if he had just crawled out of hell. Boom. At this time, a heavy shell landed in the waters ahead of Chen Yang's fleet. In the chessboard area, Lan Hao and others who did not know when to return were staring at the returning fleet with cold faces. Who fired the cannon? I wonder if the trial is over. Xiaolu yelled loudly. It's a pity that her slightly childish voice didn't have much deterrent effect, and she was carried behind by Chen Yang. Lan Hao, what do you want to do? What are you doing? My Captain Chen Yang, you have worked so hard to charge all the way to the depths of the gray mist, but I'm sorry, I can't let you return to the chessboard area for points calculation. Do you want to go to war? Chen Yang growled. Go to war? Let me see. Yo, this rust is quite bad. 90% of your battleships can't shoot shells, right? Do you still want to start a war with us? Chen Yang narrowed his eyes. Lan Hao, what do you mean? Threatening me. Although his warships are severely corroded, he still has submarines. Although the chances of winning are mediocre, it is not without a fight. Threats? No, 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 who dares to threaten the famous newcomer Wang Chenyang? I just want to talk to you about a win-win cooperation. What do you want to talk about? Chen Yang suppressed the anger in his heart. He didn't expect that the old Wang Badao would suddenly play tricks on him at this time. If it wasn't for the gray light of the explosion, why would I be so passive? Brother Lan Hao, what should we talk to him about? Now we have the advantage. Sink this guy's fleet, and the Blue City will be ours. The Black Dragon offered slander at the side. That is, there are Brother Hailong's defensive cannons, Brother Lanhao's battle fortress, and my torpedo boat. Chen Yang never returns. The Red Beard also echoed. At the same time, they began to win over Qi Qian and Shui He. 2. The settlement is based on Chen Yang's points. Even if there are any rewards in the Azure City, they will definitely not have your share, and they will all be diluted by his share. You don't want to run so far by yourself, but it's a waste of time. That's right, I suggest that we join forces and solve this little fool Chen Yang together. This moment, the situation changed in an instant. If all these people united, it would be bad for him. Seeing that Lan Hao gained power, his words became a lot tougher. Lan Hao, what kind of cooperation do you want? Chen Yang suppressed the anger in his heart. It's very simple, you give up the points calculation yourself, or share the points equally with everyone. After all, everyone present has troubles without credit. Brother Lan Hao is right. The two doglegs took the opportunity to echo. What if I don't say yes? Hee, I remember that there is an old saying in Blue Star that those who know the current affairs are the best. I don't think Captain Chen Yang will embarrass everyone. Chen Yang looks up, glancing at the transparent shadow on the throne. That thing is just a projection, and has no consciousness of its own at all. No money. Count on it rather than on yourself. On the war fortress, the gun barrels began to turn their lights, and the 350mm heavy artillery had begun to aim at Chen Yang's fleet. I'll see who dares to touch my wife. At this moment, a burst of shouting sounded from the lips, accompanied by the constantly shining white teleportation light. Huge Sovereign-class pre-Dreadnought battleships were sent over like dumplings. There were thousands of ships, which instantly surrounded the fleet of Lan Hao and others. The girl stood at the bow of the ship in high spirits, holding a big gun in her hand, pointing at Lan Hao at the top of the war fortress. Mom, whoever dares to touch a single hair of my eldest brother, Nizi will chop him up and feed him to the fish. Vulgar language and pirate-style growls followed. Another 1,000 Sovereign-class pre-dreadnoughts were sent over, this time guarding the forefront of Chen Yang's fleet. Arranged neatly, slowly raise the muzzle. The visitor turned his head and grinned, and rushed over like a dog's leg. Boss Chen Yang, the Golden Dragon rescue is late, please punish me. The sudden turn made Chen Yang overwhelmed. It's true that there is no way out after the mountains and rivers are full of doubts, and there is another village with dark willows and bright flowers. Hey, didn't you leave? Why are you back? Chen Yang smiled at the girl. HMPH, I didn't come back to save you. I came here for the treasures of the Azure City, and if it wasn't for your lackey Golden Dragon begging so hard, I wouldn't be bothered to come back and save you, idiot. Although these words were blunt, Chen Yang was not angry at all. He has long been used to the character of a tsundere girl. Ha ha ha, anyway, thank you. The girl pursed her lips. Don't say thank you, you have to pay for this transmission fee, otherwise I will never end with you. Good good, Chen Yang grinned from ear to ear. Sister Bingxia. Xiaolu happily waved at Bingxia, even changing her address. The situation has reversed again, some are happy while others are sad. Lan Hao was dumbfounded. The Black Dragon and the Red Beard who were talking nonsense just now and not leaving a way out for themselves were also dumbfounded. Instead, the moon took a step back and kept a distance from them. Under the complicated eyes of these people, Chen Yang swaggered to drive the fleet into the chessboard area. Brother, slow down, watch out for the steps. Jinlong saddled his horse and climbed onto Chen Yang's flagship in the first time, which is definitely a very qualified dogleg. Chen Yang's sharp eyes shot over, and Hailong and others lowered their heads. Even Lan Hao couldn't help sighing, as if he had exhausted his energy, he sat down decadently. It can be seen that his hope of sneaking into the Blue City has failed. The housekeeper didn't give them a chance to take advantage of the loopholes, and cut off the water channels in and out of the city long ago. After finally climbing up, he could only come back humming. Also lost the chance to earn points. Just when Chen Yang's fleet drove back to the chessboard area, those blue Qinglan-class frigates sprayed 2 blue waves towards the fleet, forming a huge water gate. When the battleship passed through the water gate, something magical happened. Because the rust generated by the gray light fell down, the battleship soon became clean and new again. It's like taking a bath and washing away all the filth on the body. No, it's not a cleanse, it's a fix. The special substance contained in the blue waves minimized the impact of the gray light on the Chenyang battleship. When the ferocious turret slowly turned again, Lan Hao and the others knew that this time they were completely defeated. Everyone is here, points are being settled. The butler's voice sounded, making everyone look up. Azure Fleet, 50,000 points. Black Dragon Fleet, 40,000 points. Redbeard Fleet, 45,000 points. Moon Fleet, 60,000 points. New Century Fleet, 300,000 points. Moon River Fleet, 320,000 points. The last is Chen Yang's fleet. People watched the numbers soar all the way, from the previous hundreds of thousands to tens of millions in an instant. The rest of the fleet were dumbfounded. How can there be such a high score? When people checked the details of the points carefully, they discovered that a single gray fog core was worth 8 million points. As for Chen Yang's ability to destroy the gray mist core, he possessed more than just luck. Excuse me, what can the points be used for? Chen Yang asked. It can be exchanged for special products of the Azure City, various weapons, warships, supplies, etc. What about the right to inherit the Blue City? Redbeard couldn't help asking. As soon as this word came out, the butler actually looked over here. Scared the Redbeard to tremble. With a wave of his right hand, a blue door opened in front of him. The rippling blue waves, like the door formed by the condensed water ripples, are magnificent. Welcome to the Azure City. Ri and Orf Jinlong and the others looked at each other in blank dismay. Nothing. Jinlong took the opportunity to drive the battleship to serve as Chen Yang's thugs, and disarmed all these fleet commanders. Chen Yang, you want to arrest me too? Qi Qian frowned, looking at the golden dragon fleet that surrounded him. Don't worry, Captain Qi Qian, if you don't do anything wrong, why are you afraid of ghosts knocking on the door? Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. Otherwise, you can reason with Lao Su's AFDJ monarch number. Jin Long let out a low growl. He was born as a pirate, so he naturally knows how to intimidate and lure. The implication is obvious. Give you face, you have to continue. If you don't answer, then you will suffer. Qi Qian could only choose to compromise in the end. Chen Yang's hundreds of rusty battleships can still be carried by himself. How to fight these thousands of former Dreadnought battleships? Quantity is king. As for Lan Hao and others, they were directly arrested and placed on a battleship. With a slight change, the fleet can send all of them to the bottom of the sea to feed the fish. Although unwilling, the situation is not forgiving. Just as the blue door slowly opened, the girl walked up to Chen Yang swaggeringly with a big gun on her shoulder. Throwing the Predator badge in his hand, take it back, don't do these foolish things like sacrificing one's life for easy money and being a hero to save the beauty in the future. Although my sister is very moved, if you die, who will I ask to cooperate with in the future? Chen Yang laughed. Actually, the curse of the gray mist is not that scary. Do you think I am back? Hurry up and shut up, you will be proud of destroying a small core. You have only seen the tip of the iceberg of the power of the gray curse. Remember my words in the future, don't touch that thing unless necessary, do you hear me? Looking at the girl with her hips akimbo and pointing at herself like a housekeeper, Chen Yang couldn't help but chuckle. Why are you laughing? I think of happy things. Ah, I'm too lazy to care about you. Next time I encounter this thing, I won't come to rescue you again, and let you fend for yourself. HMPH. The girl turned around angrily. Chen Yang was so angry that he was going to die of anger. Miss, calm down, you have a cup of tea. The dog-legged Jinlong inspected Duodu several times and handed him a drink. Go away, go, I'll be annoyed when I see you. Pushing away the drink, he jumped off Chen Yang's ship in 2 steps and returned to his own flagship. Chen Yang didn't care about picking up the drink in Jinlong's hand, and gulped it down. At this time, the blue door finally opened completely. Looking into the eyes, the front is a city like a fairyland. Suspended above the flowers in the mirror and the moon in the water, people can't help but have thousands of reveries. When the battleship slowly sailed into the blue door, the beautiful city seems to be close at hand. You can reach out and touch it. However, when Chen Yang looked back, everything around him was flowing in time. With a whoosh, a flame ignited. Flames and burning are everywhere, and in the distance, the city supported by huge pillars is also burning. Firelight lit up the sky. He saw the intertwining of distorted off-white light and blue light, stirring brilliant colors in the sky. Everything was really like a mirror image, watching the perfect city burn to ashes in the fire. The sky fire fell, and the huge and magnificent city began to collapse. Blue water floods the sky, as if the end of the world is coming. When everything calms down, open your eyes and look. A dilapidated ancient city that has experienced years of history is slowly unfolding in front of everyone. Is this the Azure City? People can't compare the beautiful fairyland city before with the dilapidated ruins in front of them. The sky pillars of the blue giant city can still be vaguely seen, and now they are also leaving traces of time in the passage of time. The huge pillar was pierced by some powerful weapon, tearing a big hole. Then ignited the entire Azure City, burning that mysterious and wonderful city. Everyone turned back. Looking down from here, the previous chessboard area has long been dilapidated. The great city was torn and crumbled, and the tall throne statues were nothing but moss-covered ruins. Only at the end of the chessboard, those debris still floating and sinking in the blue are still telling everyone. Everything I experienced before was not just an illusion. Chen Yang stared at the ruined city in front of him, with blue waves rippling below the city, but the city buildings had already collapsed and abandoned, and vegetation with complex root systems grew out. Floating on the water, it is like isolated islands that have been dusty for a long time. As the fleet passed by, some birds were startled and spread their wings with the wind. Someone exclaimed, "Look in the water." Chen Yang looked curiously at the surface of the water. Numerous humanoid statues floated and sank at the almost transparent bottom of the water. They are either surprised or scared. Why are there so many statues? Jinlong lay on the ship's side, and even touched a gray statue standing on the steps. That's not a statue, these people were once residents of the Azure City. Chen Yang's deep voice sounded, and the frightened Jinlong quickly rubbed his hands, muttering about his unintentional mistakes. He looked sideways at the girl who didn't know why she returned to his flagship. Are these people because of the Grey Curse? The girl changed into a dark leather jacket and leather pants, carrying a travel bag, as if she was on a trip. That's right, these people were eroded by a curse at a certain moment and turned into statues, which will remain unchanged forever. Chen Yang leaned on the railing. So, what is the Grey Curse? Have no idea. The girl casually took out various equipment from her backpack, and carefully adjusted her own equipment. I don't know. Don't you have a lot of research on the Grey Curse? That's my grandfather and my dad. They were obsessed with this thing when they were young, you know, ancient times, lost treasures, lost times, etc. Don't young people like such things? I'm not interested in them, and my dad didn't allow me to study these things later, so the most I know about them comes from my grandfather's research manuscripts and notebooks. Can I have a look at it? Chen Yang asked in surprise. I mean those notebooks. Did not bring. Who goes out to bring that thing? Besides, this is the fruit of my grandfather's life, you can just watch it if you say it. It's very expensive. Chen Yang had a black line on his forehead, and he really wanted to gag her mouth with navigation coins. It's a waste of money. Seeing her arranging her diving suit, Chen Yang hurriedly stopped her. What are you doing? Diving. You see that the blue city has sunk, why not go down to salvage the treasure like last time? Who told you that the Azure City has sunk? Isn't it? Of course not. Although the Azure City has indeed been breached, the Grey Curse has not penetrated into the core of the Azure City over the years, but has been compressed in the outer layer. This trial destroyed the core of the Grey Curse, and now the entire Azure Sea is safe. The girl's eyes widened in disbelief. What about the treasure? There are no treasures. In order to resist the invasion, the resources of the Azure City were almost exhausted, and there are no treasures. I saw Chen Yang spread out his right hand, and a shiny key appeared in his hand. This is. All I know is what this key tells me. In fact, when I got 10 million points, Azure City has already selected me as the successor. Going back to the knowledge of the chessboard area was just a formality. Is this all right? Hear this. Lan Hao and the others who were tied up next to him were pale. If they had known this, they would not have taken the risk. They thought that if they killed Chen Yang's points, they would be able to seize the inheritance. People are doing it, and the sky is watching. Chen Yang's points record is recorded by the housekeeper himself, and it is impossible to just lose it. Lan Hao and the others gave a wry smile, knowing that they had lost too thoroughly. All of them were downcast and didn't want to talk. Chen Yang, let me see the key. The girl rushed over, her eyes fixed on the key in Chen Yang's hand, with sly eyes. Chen Yang said, although the Azure City has been destroyed, the core of the city has not been destroyed, but is in a dormant state, and it was only slightly activated after we, the testers, appeared. It can be said that the greatest treasure of the Azure City is not the resources or treasures buried here, but the Azure City itself. Chen Yang opened his hands. As soon as the words fell, the dilapidated blue city in front of it was lifted up high, revealing the magnificent structure buried under the sea. The core of the Azure City is like a huge metal twist ball, surrounded by an azure water ring. With the lifting of the key in Chen Yang's hand, it rose high. Congratulations, the successor of the Azure City, please enter the core of the Azure City to accept the inheritance. Voice just fell. Chen Yang was directly sucked by an invisible force. It makes people jealous and angry. This guy takes everything from me. Lan Haoqi's punch hit the deck. If it wasn't for Chen Yang, Cheng Yaojin who suddenly came out, all of this should have been his. Beside, Qi Qian sneered, Captain Lan Hao, don't be ridiculous, you can't destroy the Grey Fog Core, and you can't complete the trial, so you want to get the inheritance. Hearing this, Lan Hao became very angry. Qi Qian, what are you proud of? You are not the same as a prisoner now. Tisk tisk tisk. Qi Qian smiled. I'm different from you. I don't have much conflict of interest with Chen Yang. After I get out, do you believe he will let me go? Only you. If you don't believe me, let's wait and see. Qi Qian looked calm, put his hands on the back of his head, and stared at the ever-changing mysterious core. A half-smile expression appeared on his face. At the same time, Chen Yang, who entered the blue core, is in a special state at this time. After the system came into contact with the blue core, it started to feast again. The front devoured and absorbed the mysterious cube and Klein bottle. This time I ate the core of the Azure City as a snack, which is really eye-opening. Hey, system, you ate the core, how can I control the Azure City in the future? Please rest assured the host, after the system devours the core, the host will be able to perfectly grasp all the functions of the Azure City, and be able to obtain the highest authority. The disadvantages outweigh the advantages. Voice just fell. The warning sound of the butler of the Azure City sounded around. Warning, warning, found intrusion, is tampering with the highest authority of the blue core. Chen Yang's face was startled, the highest authority was not his own. Borrowing chickens to lay eggs. Peaches instead of plums. No matter what the Blue City's plans were before, the moment the system touched the core, everything was doomed. Congratulations to the host for harvesting the Azure City and mastering the highest authority. When the blue shadow crawled in front of Chen Yang, he saw a trace of sadness flickering in the eyes of the butler of the Azure City. But soon this trace of sadness was also erased by the system, and completely transformed into a housekeeper who is only loyal to Chen Yang. The butler in front of him is not super intelligent. If he really wants to describe it, he is similar to the soul of a ship. Azure City Soul, an awkward name. Is the Blue City Lord still alive? Chen Yang asked while looking up information about the Azure City. Dead, the Lord of the Blue City has passed away for many years, and the soul has long since ceased to exist. Then why were you so sad before? Because you, Master, have cut off the last hope of the resurrection of Lord Bilan. Can he be resurrected? These words shocked Chen Yang for 100 years. No, it is the memory information about the Lord of the Azure City that is still preserved in the Azure City. If you extract these memory information, if you can collect enough ship souls, you can reshape a special soul body and turn it into a special ship spirit. The presence. But now, the highest authority of the Blue City Lord has been deprived, the memory information has been deleted, and everything is over. Chen Yang frowned, and asked the system with his consciousness, have you deleted the memory information of Lord Bilan? The memory code occupying the highest authority is not good for the host to grasp the authority, the system chooses to delete it automatically. Chen Yang nodded, that's why. It seems that the acquisition of my authority is at the price of the complete disappearance of the Blue City Lord. Get up. Chen Yang waved his hand and signaled the housekeeper to get up. It wasn't until the butler got up that Chen Yang noticed the butler's appearance, a woman with a male body, unexpectedly very good looking. His whole body is made of blue particles, his head is slightly lowered, and his face is full of docile expressions. Introduce the Azure City. As soon as the words fell, the information of the Azure City was displayed in front of Chen Yang. Azure City, broken state. Length, 100 kilometers. Width, 100 kilometers. Altitude, 30 kilometers. Space cutting level, 7 floors, 1 floor left. Space compression, 2%. Core power reserve, 5%. Number of residents of Azure City, 0. Composition structure. Azure Sea completion 80%. Azure City completion 3%. Azure City wall integrity 12%. Azure core completion 80%. Shipyard 0% integrity. Repair shop 0% integrity. Swiping down, the state of Azure City is indeed very bad. The entire city was nearly destroyed, except for the core, which was still intact. There is only 1 floor of the 7-story cutting space left. There were indeed 2 floors during the trial before, and all the energy was consumed due to the trial, and now it has completely collapsed. Chen Yang took a deep breath and didn't have much hope at all. But the actual situation is still worse than he imagined. Butler, are there no resources available? My master, there are still hundreds of Qinglin-class frigates sealed up in the warehouse, which are the last property of the Azure City. Qinglin-class frigate. Chen Yang thought of the blue warships that appeared on the chessboard battlefield before. They were powerful and very lethal to the gray ship monsters. However, master, to activate the Qinglin-class frigate requires a special blue energy stone. The energy stone extraction factory has already been damaged, and it may be difficult to recover in a short time. Chen Yang touched his chin. Difficult to restore doesn't mean it can't be restored. You mean, these factories can be restored? Yes, master, all information is stored in the core, and these special factories can be rebuilt by consuming materials and energy. Chen Yang clapped his hands fiercely. Look, what is another village? But soon, Chen Yang woke up from reality. I have never seen the materials needed to manufacture these Chinese factories. After searching for a while in the Predator trading network, Chen Yang vowed that he would not think about this matter for a long time to come. There are too many special materials required, and each one is more expensive than the other. It's simply not something that I can play now. With a sigh, things like reaching the sky in one step can only be a dream. But, not for nothing. For example, the cutting space of 100 by 100 kilometers is equivalent to a giant base island that you can carry with you. It is also very convenient to build factories and dock warships here. Not to mention, after defeating these competitors, their base islands will belong to themselves. The 10 base islands, whether they are used by themselves or sold, are a huge fortune. Thinking of this, Chen Yang feels much better. By the way, do you have a name? When leaving, Chen Yang suddenly asked. Master, please give me a name. The butler bowed his head respectfully. Since you were born in this city, and you have been silent in this city, the name of Bilan will be given to you in the future. Hear this. The eyes of the butler in front of him trembled slightly, and finally, he lowered his head deeply. Yes. Get ready to send everyone out. With a wave of his sleeve, Chen Yang instantly teleported himself to the king without taking away a single cloud. This is the special authority of the Azure City. He can move anywhere in the space unit of the Azure City at will. As soon as he returned to the deck, Jinlong rushed up. Boss, you're back. Sister Xia can't help but go to treasure hunting, see. Chen Yang looked at the girl Bingxia who was wearing a diving suit. You really want to dive to dig treasure? Otherwise, you have accepted the Azure City, and if I don't get any benefits, I will die. Then you go, I guess you can dig up some antiques on the bottom of the sea. The girl was stunned. You won't stop me. Chen Yang still shook his head with a smile. The girl plunged directly into the water. Here, Orf also came over with a look of expectation on his face. Did it succeed? Chen Yang nodded. Although the Azure City is destroyed, but you see, we will have a large base in the future, and we can carry it with us. Seeing Chen Yang's playful expression, Orf couldn't help but burst out laughing. He couldn't help sighing. With this city in 0.1, we will have a place to settle down in the endless sea in the future. Tianyu is starting. Beside, Xiaolu tugged at the corner of Chen Yang's clothes, and said hesitantly, the journey has come to an end, are you going to drive me off the boat? Chen Yang couldn't help laughing. Yo, our little green captain can't wait to fly solo. No, she was aggrieved, with a look of reluctance. After so many days, unknowingly, she has gotten used to life in the fleet and considers herself a member of the fleet. Chen Yang rubbed her little head. Silly girl, who said you're going to be kicked off the boat? I really want to kick you off, and your grandpa Orf won't beat me to death. It's just that you have to work harder in the future. Don't forget the promise you made. No way, the little girl yelled loudly. Finally see the light of day again. When everyone was sent out from the Azure City, the Sea of Storms was undergoing a transition from storm to peace. The sun is just right, and the breeze is not dry. The blue water is like a flat mirror. Battleships appeared out of thin air on the sea level. It's just that compared to the huge fleet when it entered, there was not much left when it came out. Of the 100,000 warships of the 5 major fleets, there are only a few dozen pitiful ones left. Lost almost 99% of the fleet. The Blood River fleet was not much better, with more than a dozen ironclad ships standing alone on the sea. The New Century fleet has preserved a lot of power, but there are only 40 or 50 warships left. At this time, the voice of the administrator of the Endless Sea sounded. Congratulations to Voyager for gaining control of the Azure City. Is it public? No, Chen Yang resolutely refused. What are you kidding? Being low-key is king. Announcement to all in the Azure Sea. Starting today, the Sea of Storms will disappear completely, and the Novice area will be permanently connected to the Endless Sea. All navigators in the Azure Sea can enter the Endless Sea through the reverse channel. In a blink of an eye, an announcement resounded throughout the Azure Sea. World Channel also began to liven up. What happened? The Sea of Storms is going to disappear. Our Azure Sea is about to connect with the Endless Sea. My God, is this good news or bad news? Ha ha ha, I can finally leave this place where the birds don't shit. Brothers, set sail and head to the Endless Sea. For a while, all kinds of voices resounded everywhere in the blue sea, which was great news for the newcomers. In the past, the Sea of Storms was dominated by the 7 fleets, and there were obstacles from the Sea of Storms. Now that the Sea of Storms has completely disappeared, it will be connected forever. For them, they can finally get rid of the restraint and go to a wider world. Immediately after, the second piece of news fell into the lake like a meteorite, and everyone in Leh was in a state of desperation. The 7 fleets perished. Is it fake? When I woke up, the world changed. That's the 7th fleet. What happened? Although many people have guessed, but everyone dare not talk nonsense. After all, this matter is too big, which means that the pattern of the Blue Sea area has changed for decades. There were still many people who didn't believe it. But then people found the figures of the 7 fleets on the ranking list. All their fleets have fallen from fleet ranks to fleet ranks. Azure Fleet, 1320 battleships. 90% of them are low-level warships, and there are only a handful of high-level sailing warships. White Pine Fleet, 860 battleships. Captain Bai Song died, and the second-in-command Lu Ji took over. Although it has been known for a long time that such an ending may happen, the degree of tragedy is beyond everyone's expectations. Bai Song died in battle, and the Bai Song fleet was completely disintegrated. Today's fleets are not even as powerful as some powerful large fleets. Ha ha ha, White Pine Fleet, you still have today. You have bullied us newbies for decades. Brothers, let's blow up the base camp of White Pine Fleet. Brothers, go to Bilan Island to grab resources. The Black Dragon Fleet is also abolished. Ha ha ha, Black Dragon, your retribution has finally come. After the mighty Voyagers heard the news, they all set sail and ran to the station of the 7 fleets. And the fleet at the station knew that their family was in danger, so they quickly packed up their belongings, took away what could be taken away, and ran away ahead of time. The Voyagers even swarmed up, and settled their old and new grievances together. Over the years, the 7 major fleets have been tyrannical, controlling resources. Now it falls to the altar, the wall falls and everyone pushes it. The so-called fleet allies of one kind or another turned back one after another and joined the plundering army. When everyone turned their attention to the list, Chen Yang's big fleet was the best. They knew that the battle for the Sea of Storms was won by the Rookie King. The fawning people almost overwhelmed Chen Yang's communications. At the same time, outside the ruins of the Azure City, Large deck. Bilan and the others were ashamed they have already received the news from the station. His own fleet has become history, the station was captured by the navigators, the resources were plundered, and the failure was a complete mess. Even if you let them go back, it is impossible to make a comeback. At this time, Na Chichian stood up suddenly. He broke free from the shackles. A white light enveloped him and his fleet together. That's it. Chen Yang narrowed his eyes. He knew that Chichian was unusual, but he didn't expect to have such a trick. Brother Chen Yang, I have been taking care of you these days. It's a pity that after 2 years of planning, I still failed to win the Azure City. I'm willing to lose. However, this is just the beginning. The endless sea is vast and vast. I believe we will meet again in the future. Brother Chen Yang, send it off. Voice just fell. Chichian, including his fleet, disappeared into the white light. Obviously, it was teleported away from the blue sea. At this time, the girl Bingxia climbed onto the battleship humming. That kid Chichian ran away. Yeah, I don't know what means, but I can't stop it. Chen Yang shook his head. This guy is by no means a person from all over the world, he is from the outer sea. The girl looked solemn. Outer seas, it refers to other sea areas besides the 4 seas, the endless sea. Don't you think that the 4 seas is the whole of the endless sea? Chen Yang didn't speak, and turned to look at the girl. Didn't you go hunting for the baby? I'm tired this time, can't I go next time? The girl stretched her head, and stared at Chen Yang fiercely with her eyes. Obviously, she didn't find any treasure. Hey, these guys, what are you going to do with 70? The girl pointed to the captains who were tied up. Oh, of course they let it go, why keep it? A waste of food. Release. Obviously, she didn't understand Chen Yang's brain circuit. Chen Yang didn't even hesitate, waved his hand, gave them a sampan, and then untied them all and threw them on it. Chen Yang, let us go, you will regret it. The black dragon shouted. Chen Yang stood on the high deck. I don't know if I don't regret it, but you will definitely regret being my enemy. Voice just fell. The huge fleet began to leave this sea area, leaving only a small sampan carrying several captains. Watching Chen Yang's fleet go away, several people cursed, wishing to eat Chen Yang's meat and drink Chen Yang's blood. Immediately afterwards, several people laughed loudly, their eyes full of vengeance. Soon, however, they stopped laughing, because a large number of sailing warships approached. Look, everyone, who did we find? Yo, aren't these our captains? Lan Hao, do you remember me? When I came out of Shinsho village, 80% of my millions of companions became slaves you sold. God gave me this opportunity to avenge those poor companions today. Come on, catch them. The captains suddenly lost their color and sat slumped on the small sampan. It's all over. Lan Hao sighed. Azure Center. A blue waterway going upstream seems to go straight into the sky, leading to an unknown world. Since the administrator's announcement, this mysterious countercurrent channel has been raised abruptly, like an ocean staircase suspended on the sea. Seawater does not flow downwards but flows upwards along this channel. In fact, if you observe carefully, you can find that it's not that the waterway has been lifted, but that the surrounding space has been distorted into a cone shape. Through this waterway, it leads directly to the endless sea. At this time, the countercurrent channel is full of voyagers, some are still hesitating, and some have already set sail and rushed into the countercurrent channel. Brothers, see you in the endless sea. Brother, I'm going on a long voyage, you have to take care. The Red Lantern boat group is here for a tour, the Blue Sea, goodbye. The storm ended for 3 days. Many voyagers from the Azure Sea region have rushed here, preparing to leave the Azure Sea region through the countercurrent channel and head for the endless sea. Although they don't know what is waiting in front of them, everyone seems to be full of hope. Yang Fan walks. At this time, on the far horizon, thick smoke billows. A huge fleet is slowly approaching. Wherever they pass, the ships give way. Who dares to stop this invincible steel fleet? Voyagers stared at the huge steel fleet in front of them, envious, adored, and in awe. Various emotions brewed in my heart. With one man's power, he overthrew the 7 fleets that had ruled the Blue Sea for decades. Today, the corpses of Lan Hao and others are still displayed in the largest trading market in the Azure Ocean. Can't wait for everyone to spit in the past before leaving. And as the instigator, the current true overlord of the Azure Sea region, the rookie king Chen Yang, also has the title of the Azure King. Although he has never been king or hegemony, he has been dubbed the title of uncrowned king by all the navigators. Look, it's the fleet of the Blue King. My god, what a majestic fleet. If I have such a fleet, why don't I go to the endless sea to dominate a sea area? You're thinking farts, stop daydreaming. I really want to join, but it's a pity that the Blue King only accepts blue stars. Discussions started. Behind the huge dreadnought fleet, nearly 3,000 rookie ironclad ships followed. Following behind the fleet mightily. Stand proudly on the bow of the ship, enjoying the envious eyes of the navigators from the Blue Sea. After that battle, Chen Yang swept the 7 major fleets, and the status of the newcomers began to rise accordingly. Not to mention anything else, let's just say that those newcomers who originally followed Chen Yang all changed their skills. Now the weakest Blue Star Voyagers have all got a 3rd-level sailing warship. Veteran followers, high-end sailing ships, and even ironclad ships have successfully launched. These 3,000 ironclad ships were one of the most powerful forces in the era of the 7 great fleets. On deck, Chen Yang held up the binoculars to observe the surrounding situation. Now the Azure Sea is connected with the Endless Sea, and there are millions of voyagers who come here and prepare to set off. Looking at these hopeful voyagers in the Blue Sea, Chen Yang couldn't bear to puncture their dreams. You must know that the Endless Sea is not a paradise, and it is even worse than the cruelty of the Blue Sea. If it weren't for the fact that the reverse channel is a one-way channel, the ironclad fleets of the Endless Sea would have broken into Bilan long ago, carve up this novice area. The Golden Dragon and the Maiden Bingxia returned to the Endless Sea 2 days ago. The Golden Dragon is rushing towards the exit of the Blue Sea non-stop. The news of the permanent penetration of the Azure Sea has already spread all over the world. As a special novice area, it would be strange not to be targeted by interested people. So, after Chen Yang left the Azure City area, he spent the next few days preparing his army for battle. He is very clear. The challenges in the Endless Sea are no less than when they first came to the Blue Sea. Fortunately, the times have changed, and I used to be just a Dreadnought-class battleship to support the scene. Looking back now, there are 200 battleships and 50 Derflinger-class battlecruisers. There are 200 V-type destroyers, 250 Fletcher-class destroyers, and nearly 150 U-2A-type submarines. Added 10 supply ships with a displacement of 10,000 tons. The supply ship is filled with ammunition and food, and it is built by the special shipyard of Harvest Base Island. Although it is only a steam ironclad ship, because it does not need to fight, it is enough for the time being. Because of the base island and the Azure City, Chen Yang's demand for ocean-going supply ships is not high. These battleships are not so much supply ships as maintenance ships, responsible for the daily maintenance of the fleet. Finally, the fleet approached the upstream channel, and looking up, it seemed that it was leading to the end of the sky. Orf was tied with Chen Yang, always staring at the rolling water channel ahead. Captain, entering the Endless Sea will inevitably lead to battles. I hope this first battle can be entrusted to me. Chen Yang glanced at Orf, as expected of an old and vigorous admiral. Eager to fight. Of course there is no problem. We not only want to win, but also play beautifully. For the first time entering the Endless Sea, it is inevitable to be looked down upon by others, and we have to rely on this battle to show the momentum of our Azure Sea region. Talking, Chen Yang handed over the command of the fleet to Orf, and he himself returned to the cabin, with more exciting surprises waiting for him. Orf took a deep breath and pointed forward with his right hand, #target Endless Sea, go forward. At the same time, in the cabin, Chen Yang's room was locked, and he couldn't wait to summon the system. System, have I completed my task? He had been looking forward to it 3 days ago, looking forward to the pleasant notification sound from the system. In the past few days, the system has been sorting out the core of the Azure City that had been devoured before, and finally recovered. Congratulations to the host, completed the task, roar of the super fearless era. Yes, Chen Yang shakes his fist, is it finally done? Congratulations to the host for getting the reward, Super Dreadnought Battleship Illustrated Book unsealed. As soon as the words fell, Chen Yang saw the Super Dreadnought Battleship series illustrated book that was blocked and crossed by the chain with a click, and the chain shattered. Although it is still a gray pattern, the unseal of the illustration book means a new start, and he can't wait. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a random Super Dreadnought class battleship, Orion class Super Dreadnought Battleship. Mono Zhao. Heard the name. Chen Yang was not surprised, even took it for granted. The Orion class Super Dreadnought Battleship, also known as the Orion class Super Dreadnought Battleship. As the product of the escalation of the arms race of the old empire on which the sun never sets in order to fight against the rising Han's empire. It is also the world's first Super Dreadnought battleship, which has since opened the prelude to the era of Super Dreadnought battleships. As the beginning of the Super Dreadnought class battleship, the Orion class battleship is equipped with a more powerful 343mm main gun. Greatly optimize the design of naval guns and install the advanced, drier fire control console system. Adopting the Krupp armor mode, the armor of the Super Dreadnought class battleship is thicker and its defense is stronger. Power boilers have begun to shift from coal-fired power to fuel-fired power. The performance completely surpasses the Dreadnought class battleships of the old era. Just like when the battleship Dreadnought appeared, it shocked the pre-Dreadnought battleships of the old era. From that moment on, Blue Star entered the era of Super Dreadnought battleships. With excitement, Chen Yang clicked on the data of the Orion class Super Dreadnought battleship. Battleship Orion, the Empire's 1909 shipbuilding program on which the sun never sets. Construction started on November 29, 1909 and was completed in January 1912. Full load displacement, 25,870 tons. Length, 177 meters. Width, 27 meters. Draft, 8.2 meters. Host, 18 triple expansion boilers. Power, 27,000 horsepower. Speed, 21 knots. Endurance, 6,730 nautical miles at 10 knots. Armament, 343mm 45 times diameter Mark V main gun with 5 dual-mounted guns. Secondary guns, 16,103mm 50 caliber single guns. 3,533mm underwater torpedo tubes. Armor, 304mm on the side, 75mm on the deck. Mount 254mm, turret front 279mm, conning tower 279mm. Crew, 752 people. It has to be said that it is worthy of being the first Super Dreadnought class battleship to enter the Super Dreadnought era. Both the naval gun and the fire control system have reached a new height. Although compared with the rough-skinned and thick-skinned Hans series battleships, it does feel a bit like an eggshell with a sledgehammer. But caliber is justice, and range is truth. Coupled with the artillery radar system, this Orion battleship will become the battleship with the most powerful firepower in the entire fleet. Among the Super Dreadnought class battleships, finally had a Battleships Illustrated book light up. Chen Yang glanced at other more powerful Super Dreadnought battleship illustrations, and quickly wiped his saliva. No more. It's really hungry. Ding, congratulations to the host for getting the reward, 10 technology points. As expected of a mission reward for a Super Dreadnought battleship, even the technology points let me get soft hands. 10 technology points can unlock a few black technologies, thinking about it makes me a little excited. Ding, congratulations to the host for getting a random technology reward, shipborne water reconnaissance aircraft. Chen Yang rubbed his eyes, he was sure he read right. After repeated confirmation, it was indeed a carrier-based water reconnaissance aircraft. As we all know, carrier-based reconnaissance aircraft is not a new technology, but a war weapon developed almost side by side with warships. In that early flight era when aircraft technology was not perfect and tactics were still in the exploratory stage. The most common use of aircraft in naval warfare is reconnaissance, serving as the eyes of the fleet to discover the enemy. And the carrier-based seaplane came into being. This specially modified aircraft can be loaded on a warship, take off using a simple temporary runway, and finally land on the water for recovery. The emergence of reconnaissance aircraft has greatly increased the observable field of view of the fleet. In the history of warship development, it left an indelible mark. Until after AFDD came, the aircraft carrier was born. Until the end of World War II, the era of giant ships and cannons passed, and the era of aircraft carriers came. Unexpectedly, the system unlocked this, black technology, for itself this time. Frantically waving his fists, Chen Yong blushed with excitement. Orf, Orf. Chen Yong rushed out of the bedroom in a hurry and rushed to the command room. The dazed Orf was commanding the fleet to pass through the final pass through the channel. Chen Yong couldn't help being attracted by the strange sight in front of him. The water flows continuously upwards, seemingly upwards, but in fact it is not. The system told him that the surrounding space was distorted. When the battleship reached the end, Chen Yong felt that the whole battleship dropped half a meter suddenly. There was a bang, and water splashed in all directions. Because of the difference in seawater density between the blue sea and the endless sea, the battleship suddenly switched, stirring up white waves. It fell sharply and then raised the bow of the ship high. Looking back, behind him is like a twisted mirror. When his flagship sailed out slowly, there were steel fleets following behind him. Looking forward, the warships that came out earlier than them have already covered this sea area. Mainly sail warships, a small number of ironclad ships dotted the sea. Belon Sea territory is indeed not a wealthy novice village. Is this the endless sea? Little Green was lying in front of the glass window, her eyes were shining brightly. This place is indeed different from the Azure Sea region. If the water in the Azure Ocean region is clear blue, then the water in the endless sea is dark blue like an abyss. The common sense obtained from the girl Bingxia tells Chen Yong that the average minimum depth of the endless sea is 800 meters and tens of thousands of meters deep everywhere. Even in many real deep water areas, there are deep waters as high as 100,000 meters, which is awe-inspiring. Seabirds spread their wings in the sky. Occasionally, the calls of seagulls and albatrosses can be heard, which proves that there are islands nearby, and there are quite a few of them. Compared with the barrenness of the blue sea where there is not a small island for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, the endless sea is indeed different. Automatically connect to the endless sea world channel, which is divided into 4 regions, east, west, north, south, corresponding to the 4 seas. According to the Old Bird's News, the location of the Azure Sea is in the East China Sea, at the junction with the North Sea. Jinlong has been here for a long time, engaged in the pirate business he loves all the year round, and occasionally engaged in smuggling and escort business. It is also common for black people to eat black people. The division of forces in the Endless Sea is also different from that in the Azure Sea. Based on the major islands here, the power extends outward. There are super fleets, large fleets, island owners, and even maritime kingdoms. Fleet. It can only be considered a small force in the endless sea. As for the low class like the big fleet group, 3 or 5 newcomers can be formed. There are fewer 3 to 5 trips, and more tens of thousands of people report to the group to keep warm. It looks rather shabby, and, in the endless sea, only the weakest level 2 sailing warships are eligible to set sail. Small boats are no match for the wind and waves of the endless sea. With an ironclad ship, you can join the big forces, accept protection, and enter the development period. If you have more than 100 ironclad ships, you can go it alone and organize a large ship group to play. Run merchants, deliver goods, take part in expeditions and more. Thousands of ironclad ships can form a fleet. Of course, if it is only the lowest level tortoiseshell ironclad ship, let's go to sleep. If you own 1,000 heavy ironclad ships of over 7,000 tons, you can become a small overlord, and you are eligible to participate in various sailing events in the Endless Sea. Speaking of sailing events, it is the most unique feature of the Endless Sea area. It is composed of various emergencies, faction wars, island invasions, resource island refreshes, and other nautical events. Voyagers participate in events and complete tasks, and they can harvest a lot of resources and warships, step by step, and become a powerful force in the world step by step. As for the top powers in the 4 seas, their vision is farther away. Their sights are fixed on the distant New Sea area, in the ancient waterway, in the depths of the Endless Sea. Certainly, these are not things that Chen Yong should consider today. How to gain a firm foothold in this unfamiliar East China Sea is the most important thing right now. At this time, the loud voice in front pulled Chen Yong back from his thoughts. Listen, all sailors in the Blue Sea area, this is the sphere of influence of Treasure Island. Those who need asylum can pay the security fee for Treasure Island and become a guaranteed member. Treasure Island promises to protect all members within the sphere of influence. Provide asylum as you can. Just when everyone was wondering, black smoke billowed in the distance, and a huge armored fleet came riding the waves. The whole body is covered with gold and silver lacquer, which is particularly prominent on the sea. Orf also looked at these weirdos with a dazed expression. Chen Yang couldn't help laughing. Such ostentatious painting is like carrying a huge 10-ring target dozens of kilometers away, telling everyone, "Come, hit here." Chapter 91. Treasure Island. What's so good about Treasure Island? Dear novice channelers, welcome to our Rust Island. Our Rust Island is rich in products and has developed trade. Join us in Rust Island, and we guarantee that you will build an ironclad ship in 1 year and form a large fleet in 3 years. Friends, don't miss this opportunity, never miss it again. From the north, another fleet rolled in, and the painting was also exaggerated. Red as the theme. The 2 large characters of Rust are engraved on the large hull. Go to Nima's Rust Island, a group of exhausted mining and sand washing. Join our Treasure Island. Safety is guaranteed. If you can show your potential, our Treasure Island is willing to increase efforts to cultivate. The 2 ironclad fleets almost collided with each other directly, and no one would let the other. It's just that the style of painting looks a little weird. As expected, the scene of blocking the door and killing people did not happen, and the 2 islands offered generous conditions one after another to win over these newcomers. To be honest, this is somewhat different from Chen Yang's imagination. It's not over yet. Soon more fleets will come to the pickup area in the Blue Sea. With banners and even speedboats, they distributed leaflets to these newcomers from the Blue Sea. What's going on? Was it fooled by Bing's tablet? Didn't it mean that the weak preyed on the strong in the endless sea? In a while, many newcomers were tempted, and they planned to join these seemingly enthusiastic fleet forces. Chen Yang sent a message to Jinlong uncertainly, asking about the situation here. Jinlong immediately patted his thigh to tell Chen Yang not to be impulsive. Isn't this a good thing? Let these Bilan newcomers have a place to settle down. Jinlong responded immediately. My boss, you are still too young. If these forces are really so good, I still need to work hard to be a pirate and live a life with ups and downs. But these forces are indeed recruiting, and the black and white certification contract of the Endless Sea is here, so they won't ignore the administrator of the Endless Sea, right? Of course it won't ignore the majesty of the administrators, but whether they can get benefits, whether they can truly become a part of these forces, depends on whether these newcomers can survive this big voyage incident. What's the meaning? Chen Yang frowned, as if smelling something. Just a few days ago, Donghai just released information on major events, and all forces can participate. Isn't this a good thing? It's certainly a good thing for the real strong, because with their strength, they can easily pass this big event and gain a lot of resources from it. However, for some ordinary forces that are average in strength and want to get a piece of the pie, they can only opportunistically. Opportunistic, how to say? According to the rules of the Endless Sea forces participating in major events, the higher the proportion of newcomers in a force, the lower the difficulty of the event after entering the event. Of course you understand that the low difficulty is only relative to the big forces, not those newcomers. Why? Hearing this, Chen Yang couldn't help squinting his eyes, and probably understood something. You mean someone wants to take advantage of newcomers to lower the difficulty level? That's right, that's what it means. These forces need a lot of cannon fodder to earn points, but the East China Sea Fleet Alliance has long issued an order not to forcefully arrest new recruits, so you should understand what these forces are doing now. Quote. Chen Yang took a deep breath. It's no wonder that these fleets are familiar with each other like brothers who haven't seen each other for many years. It turns out that everyone has bad intentions in their stomachs and has no good intentions. Brother, according to the contract drawn up by these people, all newcomers who join them have the responsibility and obligation to share weal and woe with the forces they belong to, and participate in the new events and activities that the forces make decisions together. Once signed, these newcomers will become the first batch of targets to score points. It's good to survive, but the difficulty of the big event is that a group of newcomers can easily pass it. Chen Yang frowned. No one cares about this matter. Manage it. How to manage it? This matter is your own wish. Even the administrators can't find fault with what these forces do. The major forces have also tacitly intended to fool newcomers, and now a big event is coming suddenly, and the Blue Sea is just connected to the Endless Sea. Aren't the Azure Voyagers equivalent to newcomers to the Endless Sea? Naturally they will be targeted. Hearing this, Chen Yang already fully understood. He had heard how Bingxia commented on Sihai before. It is said that the barbaric West Sea, the chaotic South China Sea, the beating and killing North Sea, and the hypocritical East China Sea. Now, this region of the East China Sea, just arrived, let Chen Yang see what hypocrisy is. Orf next to him has been following the conversation between Chen Yang and Jinlong, and Chen Yang didn't deliberately hide him. Orf frowned and said, "Head, these forces deceive newcomers so much, do we want to control it?" "Take care, of course you have to do it." Chen Yang took it for granted. Upon hearing this, the golden dragon who was almost approaching this sea area was anxious. "Brother, don't show your head like this, it's easy to offend people if you shoot the head." Orf next to him also nodded in agreement. "Yes, leader, although we want to stand up and make a name for ourselves, we can't act like this." Chen Yang looked at Orf and grinned. "Old man, when do you think I have suffered a loss?" This, Chen Yang can't do it to Orf. "Of course I didn't think of it on a whim. I wanted to be a fool and take a bullet for these Bilan newcomers who have never met before. Besides, this kind of thing is easy to offend too many people, and it is thankless." "What do you mean, Commander?" I saw Chen Yang clasping his right hand. "Tell me, instead of giving the opportunity to score points to these hypocritical fools, why can't we use these cannon fodder to score points?" As soon as this word came out, whether it's Orf or the Golden Dragon on the other end of the radio, they couldn't help but gasp. It took Jin Long a long time to hold back the word awesome. "Boss, little brother Jin Long's admiration for you is really surging, endless. Your move is absolutely perfect. Not only did we not offend those forces in the East China Sea by telling the truth about it, but we also attracted a large number of cannon fodder for ourselves. It really kills two birds with one stone." Chen Yang shook his head. No, it kills three birds with one stone." How to say? If someone is dissatisfied and wants to make trouble with us, old man, do you understand what I mean? It took Orf a long time to come to his senses. Head, oh head, what are you thinking? It's too insidious, but I like it." The two looked at each other, and laughed one after another. Beside, Xiaolu, who worked hard to do her homework, wrote it down carefully in a small notebook. Word by word, when you meet a group of rogues, you don't roll up your sleeves and fight, but you have to be more rogue than the rogues in order to win the final victory. Chen Yang turned around with a smile. "Little girl, you have learned composition reading comprehension well recently, come, let me test you." "I don't want it, Xiaolu is still very kind, so I don't want you to spoil Chuan." To keep a low profile, Chen Yang brought his huge fleet into the base island. It is indeed the #1 treasure in the Endless Sea. The base island can be large or small, which is equivalent to the supply base and port of call that you carry with you. In a blink of an eye, there are only a few solitary destroyers left in the huge fleet, and only one Dreadnought-class battleship supports the field. At this time, the exit of the Blue Sea area is extremely lively, and there are 8 kings if not 100 fleets rushing over. The names are even louder than each other. In order to attract people, some people even offered to join the faction and reward the attractive conditions of the second-level sailing warship. This attracted many Bilan newcomers. "I am used to living a poor life in the Blue Sea." Many people failed to gather a second-class sailing warship after 10 years of gathering together, and now they are giving it away for nothing in this endless sea. Although there are only 1,000 places, the newcomers competing for the 1,000 places are overwhelmed. 870. Membership rewards are so high, wouldn't the various benefits explode after joining? The person in charge of recruitment saw it in his eyes and was delighted in his heart. He didn't expect that this group of newcomers would choose their fleet willingly just by using a small plan. At this time, seeing this scene, other fleets also offered their own conditions. Come, newcomers, welcome to join our Black Gold Island. As long as you join our Black Gold Island, you will be rewarded with a first-class sailing warship. The quota is 1,500. First come, first served. This yelling immediately attracted the flow of people, and they all turned the boat and rushed towards the recruitment office of Heijin Island. The person in charge of recruitment immediately quit. Black Gold Island, whoever dares to rob us, don't want to live anymore. HMPH, if you people from Baisha Island rob me, you will rob me. If you have the ability, come and bite me. You, wait for me on Hagen Island. I will report this matter to the island owner, and then I will come to your Hagen Island to ask for an explanation. The person in charge of Baisha Island is talking about it, and more forces around him are beginning to follow suit. Welcome to join our Tiandu fleet. Those who join will get a first-class sailing warship. First come, first served, the limit is 2,000. Dear newcomers and friends, come to join our Qingfeng fleet. Those who join will get a first-class sailing battleship, plus 5 units of rum, with a limit of 3,000. With such favorable conditions, even the newcomers of Blue Star are a little eager to move. But soon they calmed down. Because Chen Yang hadn't moved from the beginning to the end, thinking about it carefully, there was evil inside and out, and I always felt that something was wrong. At this time, Chen Yang moved. Driving the Dreadnought Battleship stood in the middle of this sea area and began to issue regional broadcasts. All newbies in the Blue Sea, listen up, the Chen Yang Big Boat Group is ready to accept people. I plan to open several subgroups. If you are interested, you can join my Chen Yang Big Boat Group 2nd and 3rd group. The announcement was broadcast 3 times in a row, like a flatboat submerged in the massive shouts of various forces. Some even laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, it's really interesting. There are even big boat groups who come out to learn from people and accept people, and even 2 groups and 3 groups. Do any bulls and horses dare to come out and speak nonsense? It is estimated that it is some kind of opportunistic small force. Take advantage of this to show your face and liven up the atmosphere. I really don't know what to say. Dare to pull people without any strength, is it funny? You talk to me in the channel, full of cheerful atmosphere. However, just after these 3 announcements sounded, within a few seconds, the entire sea area was silent. Immediately after, all recruiting forces feel that the wind direction has changed. There seemed to be a sudden breeze in the windless bay. The newcomers who were still signing the contract immediately turned around without hesitation. Hey, what are you doing? Hurry up and sign the contract. Hey, why did you lose the contract? Send a first-class sailing warship. The person in charge yelled suspiciously, but all the newcomers left for them was the back of their heads that resolutely gave up. What second-level and first-class sailing warships? As long as you join the big fleet of Chen Yang, not to mention sailing warships, ironclad warships are also appropriate. That's right, maybe in the future we can also drive that kind of heavy warship. If we can get one, we will die without regret. Boss Chen Yang actually accepted someone. Why are you still hesitating? Hurry over. What? The quota for the 2nd group is only 30,000. How did you do it? With so many of us, how can 30,000 be enough? Hurry up and expand the capacity, 50,000. No, 100,000. What about the 3rd group? When will the 3rd group start? I want to join. I don't want rewards. I will pay back. I am willing to pay back the group fee. For a while, the wind direction has changed across the bay. Ben was still yelling 5 and 6, and there was a long queue. All of them turned to the other direction at once. This scene made the recruiting fleet look silly. What the hell are these newcomers? I don't want to send a first-class sailing warship for nothing, but to lick the ass of a large fleet. Are you kidding me? Hey, brother, you haven't finished signing your name yet. The person in charge of Baisha Island's recruitment held up the contract and shouted D. However, an unsigned contract is just paper in the toilet, without any binding power. The person in charge of Hagen Island was mocking, but found that the people who were queuing up on their side had also turned away. Ha ha ha, Hagendao, I don't think you can do it either. Hurry up and go to sleep. The face of the person in charge of Hagen Island became extremely ugly. What the hell? What kind of horses is this Chen Yang Big Boat Group? How dare you rob our people? Are you tired of working? And those Bilan newcomers who couldn't wait to sign the contract in advance were all regretful. Why is my hand so fast? I regret it. This sudden change completely changed the wind direction in the Gulf. Just 3 ordinary announcements. It's hard to imagine that a large fleet has such an appeal. It's simply unimaginable. Look up. Everyone frowns. What kind of big fleet is this? But 3,000 ironclad ships, and it doesn't seem to have much strength, so why should he? Someone couldn't bear it anymore and stopped a newcomer from Bilan. Hey, you want to join that big ship group too? That's right. King Bilan accepts people, that's a big deal. The Blue King. It's just a big fleet, is it worth your excitement? Of course, the Azure King Chen Yang swept across the entire Azure Sea with his own strength and defeated the 7 fleets that ruled the Azure Ocean for decades. He is a well-deserved uncrowned king. The man looked at Chen Yang's armored fleet, but he didn't see anything special. What 7 fleets? Tell me about it. This newcomer is also a storyteller, telling the legend about the Blue Sea in a few words. As a result, he was immediately greeted with laughter from the surrounding fleet. Ha ha ha, have you heard that a fleet of hundreds of ironclad ships can rule a novice area? Is this also a fleet? Are sailing warships counting? Such a fleet, in our East China Sea, is not even qualified to challenge a large fleet. After listening to the newcomer's narration, when these fleets looked at the 3,000 old-fashioned ironclad ships, there was a little strange taste in their eyes. It's really a group of toads at the bottom of the well, and they can't see the heights of the sky and the depths of the earth. There are no tigers in the mountains, and monkeys are called kings. These newcomers are also ignorant, they are really a bunch of ridiculous guys. Ever since they learned about Chen Yang's insider details, these Foss's hearts have been aroused by Xiao Juju. Some people also plan to use more generous conditions to attract newcomers. And some people are going to find fault. Don't crowd, everyone, line up, the second group is full, those who want to join the group are ready to enter the third group. If you want to join the third group, don't worry, the third group is preparing, and the registration channel will open in 2 hours. At this time, around Chen Yang's big boat group, surrounded by newcomers, there are 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside. 90% of the voyagers in Heian are concentrated here. No matter which forces offered more generous conditions, they could not shake their determination to join the Chen Yang fleet. At this time, a menacing armored fleet broke in. Formed from the merger of 3 forces, there are more than 4,000 medium-sized ironclad ships. Mighty and menacing. Get out of the way, let me get out of the way, don't get in the way. This fleet is like a hot knife cutting into butter, forcibly breaking through the 3 layers of newcomers encircling the inside and the outside. Hey, who is the Blue King Chen Yang? Get out and talk to me. The attitude was extremely arrogant, which immediately attracted the hostility of the newcomers. It's just quite a deterrent, not daring to approach. Chen Yang, who was studying nautical surveying and mapping with Xiaolu in the cabin, raised his head. What's going on? It's so noisy. Captain, the situation is not good. There is a fleet coming menacingly. I'm afraid it's because of the bad guys. Hear this. Chen Yang stopped what he was doing, looked at Orf at the side and said with a smile. Look, old man, it's only been a while, and some people lose their temper. Orf glanced sideways out of the porthole. Yeah, there are still a lot of people, roughly estimated to be 3,000 or 4,000 ironclad ships. Chen Yang put down the pen in his hand and stood up. If that's the case, then we will meet them. Beside, Xiaolu also stood up and asked expectantly, is there going to be a fight? As a result, Chen Yang pushed him back to the chair directly. Study with peace of mind, this is not something your child should worry about. Xiaolu stared at Chen Yang pitifully. I have been studying for 2 hours, let me take a 10-minute break. Chen Yang glanced at the time, and it was true that most of the day had passed before he knew it. Just rest for 20 minutes. You still have a mechanical class to learn in the evening, so don't be lazy. Oh, the little green face collapsed. As soon as the hatch was opened, the mighty fleet of the faultfinders almost slapped their faces. They have locked onto Chen Yang's flagship. No wonder there is such a majestic steel warship with such confidence. However, there was only one ship, and the thousands of medium-sized ironclad ships behind them gave them a lot of courage. Blue King Chen Yang, come out and speak. Chen Yang walked over to the side of the boat with his little finger out of his ears, and casually glanced at everyone. Everyone is here, what are you talking about? HMPH, Chen Yang, don't pretend to be ignorant. You have snatched away all the people we recruited. You have to give us an explanation today. What? I stole the people you recruited? How do you say that? You don't want to slander people's innocence. Chen Yang, do you still dare to argue? People are coming to you. Someone roared. I have a few questions I want to ask everyone. Chen Yang said blankly. The people on the opposite side looked at each other and snorted coldly. I want to hear what you have to argue. You say. I saw Chen Yang raise 3 fingers. First, everyone said that I was robbing people with you. I want to know, did I force them? No. Second, could it be that our side competed maliciously, and I spent a lot of money to get the head? The faces of the people on the opposite side who asked this question were ugly. After all, they were the ones who spent money to attract people. And one exaggerated than the other. It's just that who would have thought that Chen Yang would change the wind direction of the entire bay just by shouting? Thirdly, is it still saying that my big boat group blatantly slandered you and said something bad about you? Several people frowned, but they had to admit, that's not true. Chen Yang clapped his hands together. Since that's the case, I neither coerced others nor maliciously competed, and I didn't discredit my opponents. You say I rob people. Isn't that a bit of a suspicion of forcible labeling? Several people were at a loss for words for a while, and they didn't know how to refute. What are you doing talking so much nonsense with him? Dare to rob someone from us, it's simply impatient to live. That is, after a few days of being a frog in a well in the novice area, I don't know the heights of the sky and the earth. The man in the middle said with a serious face, Chen Yang, I advise you not to be ignorant of good and evil, get out of the bay quickly, and don't hinder our major forces from recruiting people. Chen Yang snorted coldly, narrowing his eyes slightly. What? Threatening me? I, Chen Yang, are not scared. It's none of my business if you can't recruit people. Don't you want to force us Bilan newcomers to join you? As soon as these words came out, the heroes were furious. The expressions of the Bilan newcomers changed. After all, anyone with a discerning eye can see that this group of recruiting forces are ignorant of themselves, and they are even irrational. That is, you big forces, do you still want to force us? What we want to join is Chen Yang's big ship group. What does our own choice have to do with you? The faces of these people who were angry with these words turned blue. What kind of magical power does this Chen Yang have? And his appeal is so strong, it simply responds to everyone. Several people retreated and decided to take a break. They are just recruiting agents. If they can't recruit enough newcomers to go back this time, they may lose their heads. Everyone, what should we do now? This Chen Yang has responded to everyone, and his appeal is far greater than mine. I'm afraid it's not easy. If you want me to say, hitting a snake and hitting 7 inches will destroy this guy's prestige. Just think about it, as long as we defeat this guy in a fair challenge, we will break his mythical place in the hearts of these newcomers. At that time, I believe that the trees will fall and the monkeys will scatter, and the walls will fall and everyone will push them away. This is a good way. If he doesn't dare to fight, we can still take the opportunity to smear and mock him, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Several people clapped their hands together, and immediately felt that there was something interesting about this matter. It's not enough for us alone, we have to bring in other forces as much as possible. The more people involved, the more imposing, the greater the deterrent effect on these newcomers. A person next to him slammed the table. If it weren't for the rules for the protection of newcomers issued by the administrator, would we need to go to such trouble? Just grab the young men. Hey, don't talk nonsense about this. The East China Sea Alliance has issued a ban, saying that it is to protect newcomers and improve the competitiveness of the East China Sea. We middle and lower level forces, please take it easy, don't really have a large-scale bloodshed of newcomers, everyone will have to eat and walk around. HMPH, a bunch of hypocrites, I want to go to Beihai, there are so many troubles in Donghai. At this time, Chen Yang's provocative voice came from the intrepid. By the way, have you discussed it? What do you want to do with me? I'm all ears. Several people snorted coldly. Azure King, right, I heard that you are the uncrowned king of the Azure Sea, but I think that's all. These shabby boats are not even as good as a small boat group in our eastern sea. On behalf of the Red Wolf Fleet, I, Og, challenge you Chen Yang to a duel of iron ships. Do you dare to fight? Duel of iron ships, I'm going, is the Red Wolf Fleet crazy? They actually launched a duel of iron ships. There was a lot of discussion around, and the surrounding forces, large and small, pointed, with different expressions. Iron Fleet Duel, what's that? Chen Yang took the opportunity to send a message to ask Jinlong. Boss, duel between iron ships is an officially recognized public duel method in the Four Seas region, witnessed by the administrator of the Endless Sea. After starting the iron ship duel, both sides will be pulled into a special duel field, and both sides will send their respective fleets into the duel field for a dogfight. The duel will not be terminated until one side loses more than 2/3 and surrenders, or is completely wiped out. It's the craziest kind of challenge, and the two sides are almost endless. Boss, why are you asking this all of a sudden? Then, Jin Long seemed to realize something. Boss, someone challenged you to an iron ship duel. Red Wolf Fleet, do you know him? Yes, Captain Red Wolf is quite well known in the nearby sea area. After 10 years of development, he has nearly 5,000 medium-sized ironclad ships under his command. He is vicious, and he does a lot of sneaky things behind his back. Talking, Jin Long chuckled lightly. This Red Wolf dares to provoke the boss. I think he is stupid to open the door for stupid, he is so stupid. Others don't know the power of his boss, but he knows it all. Just the 1,000 sovereign-class pre-Dreadnought battleships in his hands can sweep across this sea area. The generation difference of battleships is almost a one-sided massacre. If it is a Dreadnought battleship like the boss, 100, no, 20 ships can make the Red Wolf fleet overwhelmed. Hitting the boss with the head. At first, Jin Long was still wondering how this group of people had the guts to challenge the boss, until Chen Yong told him that he only left one dreadnought outside. Jin Long finally couldn't help giving Chen Yong a thumbs up. This is to pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger, so that there is no leftovers from the Red Wolf fleet. At this time, Aoj is mocking arrogantly. Chen Yong, do you dare to accept the challenge of my Red Wolf fleet? I saw Chen Yong hesitated for a moment, as if struggling several times. These changes in expression were seen by Og and remembered in his heart. Chen Yong raised his head. I can accept the duel of iron ships, but I want to win a little prize. Luck, that's right, let's play bigger if we want to play. Both sides bet 1 million units of metal resources. If whoever wins, 1 million units of metal resources will be taken away. What do you think? You have 1 million units of metal resources. Og on the opposite side expressed doubts. Chen Yong didn't talk nonsense, and directly showed his million metal resources. Building ships several times consumes a lot of money. To be honest, this is the only metal resource Chen Yong has left, so he has to find a way to earn some. Seeing Chen Yang's bet, it was Og's turn to panic. After all, this is 1 million units of metal resources, which is not a small sum even for their Red Wolf fleet. You wait, I have to ask our captain for instructions. Ha ha ha, it's really interesting. You have to ask the captain for this little resource. Your Red Wolf fleet is not doing well. Augur blushed angrily and had a thick neck, but he calmly sent an inquiry to his own captain. 1 million is 1 million, this bet, I, Red Wolf, will follow. At this moment, a large ironclad ship engraved with the painting of a giant red wolf spouted black smoke. The surrounding battleships quickly moved out of the way. It turned out that the Red Wolf came in person. It seems that this big event is very attractive. Yes, I heard that many fleets and island owners are rushing here. This rookie Chen Yong is finished. A little frog in the bottom of the well dares to challenge the Red Wolf fleet. Isn't this courting death? As long as Chen Yong loses power, aren't these newcomers all ours? There was a lot of discussion, and the eyes were full of contempt, intending to watch a good show. Chen Yong looks up. He exchanged glances with the gloomy man on the battleship. There are 3 scars on his face, just like the traces left by real wild wolves on his face, adding a lot of fierceness to him. Red Wolf, right, how do you fight? Is it the small fleet window? Just click on it, or the big fleet will come directly. On the opposite side, the Red Wolf pointed his right hand. Og, I will hand over the first and second fleets to you, and let me blow up this ignorant newcomer. Yes, Aoj's face was filled with joy, full of excitement. Captain Red Wolf promised to complete the mission. Voice just fell. Chen Yong heard the voice of the manager of the Endless Sea coming from beside his ear. Please note that Og the Voyager initiated a duel with iron ships to you. Do you accept it? Is there a choice? Of course I accept it. Voice just fell. Once the blue light curtain fell, the two of them were directly pulled into a special circular space. One red and one blue. Although this space looks small, it can be stretched infinitely. Range from 0 to 100,000 nautical miles. Of course, the size of the normal small fleet duel space is about 100 nautical miles. Both parties can pull into the fleet from 0 to millions without limit. If it is preset in advance, only a fixed number of warships can be pulled in, only less, not more. Therefore, both parties set the limit number, 3,000. That is to say, the number of fleets that each party can draw into the fleet cannot exceed 2 terms. As soon as Og entered the duel space, he pulled all the warships under his command into it, a total of more than 2,000, which is half of the Red Wolf fleet and the absolute main force. It can be seen that Red Wolf is an extreme gambler and also very experienced. Bet thrown. The manager of the Endless Sea is responsible for the management. After one side wins, the manager will send the bet to the winner's side as soon as possible. If the agreed bet is not enough, the initiative will be regarded as a failure, and the bet will not be refunded. Note: 10% betting tax rate. The medium-sized ironclad ships of the Red Wolf fleet are the most common green water-class ironclad ships in the East China Sea. The average tonnage is around 6,000 tons, and it is equipped with 4 203 mm main guns, 2 in the front and 2 in the rear. Double chimney layout, full steam power, maximum speed 13 knots. In addition, the side armor is 180 mm, the deck armor is 60 mm, the turret armor is 200 mm, and the conning tower armor is 200 mm. The Livshui class ironclad ship has a long history and mature technology, and is one of the most popular medium-sized ironclad ships in the world. Nonuos, there are more than 2,000 ironclad ships lined up neatly, with thick smoke billowing, majestic. On the flagship, Augur was full of pride. It seems that he has already seen the scene where his own fleet beat the so-called Bilan king to the ground, begging for mercy on his knees. Attack the whole ship to capture Chen Yang alive. Let this guy see the strength of our Red Wolf fleet. Facing the launch of the mighty fleet in the red area, Chen Yang was not idle. Grabbing with his right hand, 50 Wyoming-class battleships and 50 King-class battleships were summoned to the duel space in Shenyang Base Island. When these behemoths with a displacement of nearly 30,000 tons appeared on the battlefield, Aoj on the flagship was startled, and subconsciously picked up the binoculars in his hand. At a glance, I saw the huge monster that was discharging the battle line and slowly turning with those ferocious main guns. What is that? Rumbling. The sound of cannons resounded through the sky, and hundreds of heavy warships that surpassed the times began to spit out angry flames. The ultra-long-range shooting of more than 17 kilometers did not wait for Augur's fleet to assume an attacking posture, and it was far from reaching the shooting range position. The cannonballs on the opposite side have fallen like meteors. The 400-kilogram shell easily tore through the armor of the ironclad ship and penetrated into the fragile engine room. One shot made the 6,000-ton ironclad ship lose its power, the hull capsized, and it leaked water. Ah, I've been shot. Help, my motivation is damaged. Ammunition compartment, put out the fire. In just one encounter, a large number of ironclad ships were hit. Because of the correction and guidance of the artillery radar, the shooting accuracy of the fleet became more accurate every time. The slow speed of ironclads makes these warships easy to hit. Augur was terrified. In just a few minutes, hundreds of ironclad ships sank to the bottom of the sea forever. The opponent didn't even take the initiative to attack, but just stood still and shot. However, the distance from the sound of the cannon had already exceeded the range of his ironclad ship by several times. Even those super ironclad ships have a range of only about 7 or 8 kilometers. Monster. Og regretted it a bit. This Chen Yang is not a frog in a well, but a wolf in sheep's clothing. It turned out that this guy was waiting for him to take the initiative to provoke him, and he foolishly got in. Withdraw quickly. It is estimated that the fleet will be wiped out by the opponent before it rushes into the range. The firepower of the 100 super battleships on the opposite side far exceeds the firepower of his more than 2,000 ironclad ships. It was a one-sided massacre. At this time, the fleet on the opposite side moved, coming from both sides. It is another classic V-shaped offensive, which not only guarantees the speed of the ship, but also ensures that the main guns of the battleship maintain the firing positions of the main guns as much as possible. It is hard to imagine that these tens of thousands of tons of behemoths can run at a terrifying speed of 2,560 knots. So a counter-charge directly shattered the camp of the Augur fleet, as fragile as a glass. No, under the attack of the opponent's 305 mm main gun, his ironclad ship is even weaker than a glass. It's okay to hit other places. Once the armor-piercing warhead penetrates the protective compartment and causes the ammunition compartment to explode, it is really hard to save. I surrender, I surrender. Og collapsed. This is an evil dragon, a terrifying evil dragon. How can I be this guy's opponent? Battle damage is less than 2/3, unable to initiate surrender. The unfeeling voice of the administrator of the Endless Sea sounded, shattering Og's last hope. At this time, he heard piercing screams, and when he looked up, dozens of shells were close at hand. It's just that the shell is bigger and more terrifying, like the blade of the god of death harvesting the soul, watching helplessly as the shell penetrates the armor of his flagship. Boom! The mushroom cloud from the explosion soared into the sky, and immediately after that, the sound of explosions continued to resound on the ironclad ship. Aoj screamed in horror, only feeling the world spinning. The flames engulfed everything, and lost all consciousness in an instant. At the same time, on the battleship Orion, Chen Yang stood in the command tower and held up the binoculars to observe the results of the first actual battle of this super dreadnought-class battleship. How is the result? Report, Commander. The enemy flagship has been destroyed. Good. Obviously, Chen Yang is very satisfied with the firepower of this ultra-dreadnought battleship, which is far more powerful than the dreadnought-class battleship. After all, the 10 343mm main guns were not blown out. Captain, I suggest dispatching cruisers to cut and destroy the remaining fleet of the Red Wolf fleet. Orf said. Okay, it's up to you. Try to end the battle within an hour. Yes. At the same time, outside the dual space, whether it is the major forces or the newcomers of Bilan, they are all looking forward to the result of the decisive battle. The pride on the faces of the captains of the East China Sea has not diminished. In their opinion, he is just a rookie king, and he can turn the world upside down. However, when the dual space slowly dissipated, everyone present was stunned by the shocking scene. On site, there was only Chen Yang, a lone battleship left, sailing back to the bay leisurely, one when it entered, and one battleship when it came out. As for the Red Wolf fleet, where is the Red Wolf fleet? The Red Wolf's face changed suddenly, full of AFCJ anger. Chen Yang, what have you done to my fleet? How do I know? Well, Og didn't enter the dual space at all, and I came out after waiting for a few hours. I said, Mr. Red Wolf, you really have to take care of yourself. You don't even know that there are traitors in the fleet. It is estimated that your fleet was stolen by Naoj. The Red Wolf's expression changed. You treat me like a 3-year-old child. Iron Fleet Duel is a mandatory entry. Under the supervision of administrators, how could Og take the opportunity to leave? As soon as this word came out, all the major forces around have started talking about it. This is a duel between iron ships, and it is impossible to escape halfway. The only possibility is that Og is defeated and the entire army is wiped out, so that no battleship can get out of the dual space. Thinking of this possibility, everyone's attitude towards Chen Yang changed slightly. This person must not be underestimated. And this guy never showed his whole cards from beginning to end. Is it the base island? At this time, a white battleship slowly approached. It was a super ironclad ship with a displacement of more than 12,000 tons. 8 305mm main guns and nearly 10 150mm secondary guns are equipped with abundant martial arts. There are already some shadows of the former Dreadnought battleship. Wherever it passed, all the new and old forces gave way one after another, for fear of blocking the way. Look, it's Mu Baifeng. How did this guy appear in the novice area? Could it be that these top forces also want to get involved in the novice area? Chen Yang vaguely heard the name of the mysterious person in the discussion. Wearing a white suit and trousers, wearing a white suit hat and a pair of red leather shoes. A gray bronze badge was pinned to the chest. Even though it was a few kilometers away, Chen Yang recognized it at a glance. It was the Predator badge. The opponent stood gracefully on top of the thick gun barrel, with his hands open, facing the sea breeze. His eyes were slightly closed, as if he was feeling the wind blowing past him. The hull number of the battleship is 006, and an exquisite ivory tower mark is painted on the bow. The 12,000-ton refitted ironclad ship, the badge of the Predator, and the manner in which everyone avoided the scene all proved that the identity of the visitor was unusual. Boss, be careful, I just saw the youngest of the Ivory Palace, Mu Baifeng, walking towards you, so be careful. At this time, Chen Yang received a warning sound from Jinlong. Ivory Palace, Mu Baifeng, who, Ivory Palace, one of the 3 top powers in the East China Sea, has 3 large fleets under it. It is a huge force, covering half of the East China Sea. The 3rd son of the Ivory Palace is even more ruthless. He is the 3rd adopted son of the Lord of the Ivory Palace. He commands the 3rd largest fleet at a young age. You must be careful. Avoid as much as you can. I saw Chen Yang grinning. I'm afraid I can't avoid it. He's here. Where? Right in front of me. Chen Yang raised his head and looked at the young man in the white suit who jumped directly from the opposite battleship to his own battleship. The surrounding sailors rushed over with their weapons in hand, aiming at the man one after another. Chen Yang raised his hand to signal all the sailors to retreat. You are Chen Yang. When the other party saw Chen Yang for the first time, he called him by his first name, obviously it was for him. Who are you? Chen Yang stared at the man blankly. From the first impression, Chen Yang did not like this man. Let me introduce myself, the 3rd child of the Ivory Palace, Mu Baifeng. The other party bowed slightly, stood on the deck and saluted as a gentleman. Mu Baifeng, I don't know him, what can I do for you? Every word of Chen Yang can scare those surrounding forces into a heart attack. That's the 3rd child of the Ivory Palace in the East China Sea. There are prominent figures in the entire East China Sea. How dare you be so arrogant in the face of such figures? This Chen Yang is finished. How dare he be so rude to Lord Mu? What a rude rookie, don't you know Lord Baifeng's name? There is a lot of discussion around. On the deck, the two looked at each other. Although Chen Yang's performance was unexpected, Mu Baifeng didn't seem to be angry, but greeted Chen Yang very familiarly. It doesn't matter, I didn't know each other before, but I know each other later, especially since I like to make friends more. Chen Yang was taken aback for a while. This guy is really familiar. Shouldn't you also come to warn me not to rob newcomers? Chen Yang said bluntly. These words almost didn't make the hearts of those surrounding forces jump out. Especially the Red Wolf before, after seeing Mu Baifeng, became more docile like a dog. The Red Wolf has met Lord Baifeng. He took the opportunity to lean over to get acquainted and say hello. Red Wolf, I don't know him, what's the matter? Before the Red Wolf could speak, he interrupted the Red Wolf directly. If you have nothing to do, don't bother me to chat with Brother Chen. Red Wolf's face changed slightly. Brother Chen. He took a careful look at Chen Yang. Was he sure that he was just an ordinary rookie? Did they know each other before? Various speculations came to mind, but Red Wolf didn't dare to speak anymore. Quickly bowed his head. No, it's nothing. I'll take my leave. Where did the Red Wolf dare to speak? Hurry up and stay as far away as possible, for fear of offending the moody 3rd young master. Until then, Mu Baifeng turned his head and began to look at the intrepid ship behind Chen Yang. After carefully looking at it for a while, I couldn't help giving a thumbs up. Good ship. Not for sale. Chen Yang choked Mu Baifeng on the opposite side with one sentence, making the other party smile awkwardly. No, what I mean is, Brother Chen, wouldn't you invite me in for a cup of tea? The deck is windy, and I'm not in good health. After finishing speaking, he did not forget to cough twice. Chen Yang squinted his eyes. He really wanted to see what this Mu Baifeng wanted to do. Turn sideways and make a please gesture, please. Brother Chen doesn't need to meet outsiders, just call me Brother Mu. Of course, you can also call me Baifeng. Chen Yang. By the way, do you guys have any special hobbies? I don't like men. When Chen Yang turned around, Leng Gong made up for it. Mu Baifeng was stunned for a long time before he suddenly understood what Chen Yang meant. Ha ha laughed loudly. Ha ha, Brother Chen, me too. No one knows what the two men talked about in the cabin. An hour later, Mu Baifeng came out of the cabin, and the two of them seemed to be quite familiar with each other, as if they had been friends for many years. That's it, Brother Chen, it's settled like this. When the event starts, see you at the agreed place. Chen Yang also bowed his hands at him, and left. Many people's scalps were numb watching this scene, especially many people who were going to find fault with Chen Yang before wanted to slap themselves twice. Who is this Chen Yang? He actually called the 3rd brother of Ivory Palace, and the relationship seemed unusual. Could it be some young master who went to practice in the blue sea? A big shot. This thought popped into my head and I couldn't stop it anymore. It wasn't until Mu Baifeng's battleship left far away that everyone came back to their senses. At this time, everyone's attitude towards Chen Yang was completely different. As time went by, more and more forces approached the blue newcomer bay. A new round of robbing war seems to be starting again. But this time, a huge shit-stirring stick came. Hey, stop for me, all the newcomers in the Blue Sea area crawl over to sign up for me, and join my Golden Dragon Pirates, to ensure that you will eat well and drink hot. The Golden Dragon Pirates. The newcomers were stunned. What the hell is this Golden Dragon Pirates? Is it also a great power in the East China Sea? Otherwise, why are these forces around him so afraid of him? When the huge fleet, all sovereign-class pre-Dreadnought battleships rolled in, the surrounding forces were afraid to avoid them. Why did this evil star come here? It's the evil star Jinlong. Everyone, stay away. This guy is also here to snatch people. He is a pirate and he wants to participate in the event. Jinlong is like a vicious wolf, it bites whoever it sees. Just because the fleet of Heijin Island didn't have time to get out of the way, the 3 warships were sunk by Jinlong's direct fire. Golden Dragon, you are too deceitful. I'm deceiving you too much. What the hell, I want you to get out of my way, why not get in my way? Go back and tell your old and immortal Heijin Island master, I'm going to pay a good visit to Jinlong in a few days. Quote. The representative of Heijin Island dared not speak out. Who would dare to offend such an evil star? It is said that a few months ago, Jinlong was just a little fool with little influence. But since returning from a trip to the Grey Domain, he has formed a fleet that is so powerful that it is abnormal. All heavy steel warships that only the top forces have. Sweeping across the surrounding sea area for thousands of miles, no one dared to say more. Now it is the road to whitewashing, and the trade between the East China Sea and the North Sea is carried out, and the business is booming. It is said that he is also surrounded by big people in Beihai. It is like a salted fish turning over, and a pheasant flying on the branches. Coming so arrogantly, no one dared to choke. Golden Dragon, are you crazy? With just your fleet, how dare you fight against so many forces like us? Ha, what a joke, you don't even ask me how I made my fortune, at worst I go back to my old job and go to pirates. But I warn you, be careful with all your shipments to Beihai in the future. As soon as these words came out, many people's faces changed, and they hurried out to smooth things over. Brother Jinlong, misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Sorry to Brother Jinlong, your lord has a lot, give me face, don't be as knowledgeable as these young people. The owner of Chisha Island took the initiative to stand up, hoping to appease Jinlong's anger. Jinlong nodded. Island Master, you're being polite. I, Jinlong, are not unreasonable, but I just don't see some people taking advantage of others. Talking, he looked around and said loudly, Hey, boys in the Blue Sea, I have some good news for you, a new event in the East China Sea is about to start. The entry of newcomers into the event can greatly reduce the difficulty of the event. My Golden Dragon Pirate Group intends to recruit some ambitious brothers and use the advantages of newcomers to score points. I don't treat you badly. We will share all the gains. What do you think? As soon as this word came out, everyone's faces changed color, especially those forces who had traveled thousands of miles to this blue bay to pull people. All of them were stunned by Jinlong's words, and they were speechless for a long time. But the newcomers blew up the pot. Brother Jinlong, what do you mean by this event? Golden Dragon, are you crazy? Someone growled, intending to stop Jinlong. Either threats, or flattery, were all ignored by Jinlong. He came here just to stir up shit. If he didn't muddy the water, how could he stop here? He looked at these newcomers in surprise. Didn't these recruiters tell you? The big event of the East China Sea event will start in 1 month, and all forces, whether it is a small fleet or a large fleet, are eligible to participate. The big event has both difficulty and rewards. If you are lucky, it is not a problem to get rich overnight in the event. As he spoke, he looked at these newcomers with scrutiny. You newcomers who participate in major events will enjoy newcomer bonus treatment, and the difficulty will decrease accordingly, while the rewards will remain the same. However, with the strength of newcomers like you, it is quite difficult to complete the major events of the event by yourself. Group. The pirate group borrows your newcomer privileges to reduce the difficulty, and correspondingly, my Golden Dragon pirate leader promises to provide security for the brothers who join, and the reward will be 10%. Hearing this, the faces of the newcomers present were not good looking. None of the recruiting forces around them told them about this. If what Jin Long said is true, then the purpose of these forces in recruiting their newcomers is self-evident. Some people dug out the contract to check the terms and conditions, and they found clues in it. The sound of questioning made these forces who came to recruit new recruits speechless. The more they explained, the more suspicious they became. Although Jin Long is arrogant, he clearly explained the pros and cons. In the entire Novice Bay, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Before, there was Chen Yang, the rookie king, who disrupted their rhythm, and later, there was Jin Long, the shit-stirring stick, who stirred up the whole pool of water into muddy water. It's really hateful, but the two people in front of them are more difficult to provoke than the other. They are really dumb and eat cactus, and they can't tell the pain. The direction of the wind has completely changed, and newcomers have lost trust in these recruiting forces. On the contrary, many people had a good impression of Jin Long, an upright and heroic pirate. For a while, there was an endless stream of people who wanted to join the pirate group, which made Jin Long burst into laughter. What his pirate group lacks most now is people. This expansion of personnel is enough for him to reorganize a fleet and further strengthen the strength of the pirate group. Many newcomers gave up the idea of joining these established forces and planned to go it alone. They reported to the regiment to keep warm and organized a large boat regiment. Even if the strength is weaker, it is better than being regarded as an unwitting tool for scoring points. Certainly, these established forces are not fools either. Seeing that the situation is not right, they have the idea that they can restore some of their prestige. They have changed their recruitment conditions. Take the initiative to post the entries of participating in the big events of the event. And made many concessions. As a result, the situation seems to be getting better. There are also some newcomers who start consulting. After all, there are many newcomers. They just came to Endless Sea and they are not familiar with the place. If they want to get ahead here, they have to find a backer. As long as they are not used as cannon fodder, everything can be considered. At this time, on the Intrepid, Orf looked at Chen Yang. "Captain, what should we do next?" I saw Chen Yang clapping his hands. "The goal has been achieved, we have recruited a lot of people, and we have also improved our reputation in the East China Sea. This is the first step in laying the foundation, and we are on the way. What about the newcomers? Let them go. There are tens of millions of voyagers in the Blue Sea, and we can't pull everyone into the regiment. At most, we will build a recruitment office at this novice exit in the future to attract all the good seedlings from the Blue Sea. With our current reputation in the Azure Sea, isn't it the easiest thing to monopolize talents?" Orf understood what Chen Yang meant. This wave has completely stabilized their position in the Endless Sea. Then Chen Yang took out a large stack of blueprints for medium-sized ironclad ships. "Look, such a good opportunity, isn't it a good day to sell blueprints? Do newcomers need a boat to sail? We can also take this opportunity to make a good profit." Immediately after, on the edge of the bay, the newcomers saw Chen Yang starting to build a shipyard and sea pier. And place signs. The Chen Yang Grand Fleet is selling Blue Water class medium-sized ironclad blueprints, limited to 10,000 copies, first come, first served. We also provide warship upgrade services to help you reduce material consumption by 30%. As soon as the news came out, the newcomers were completely excited, and the major forces onlookers were also dumbfounded. Where is this Chen Yang sacred? Take out 10,000 green water class medium-sized ironclad blueprints at random. 10,000 drawings, 500 units of metal assets Genichi sheets. Such an explosive price has moved the hearts of many established forces. Chen Yang's backstage private messages are almost bursting. Until Jin Long quietly drove a boat to join Chen Yang. "Boss, long time no see, I miss you so much." As he said that, he rushed over to give Chen Yang 3 bows and 9 kowtows. Okay, I haven't seen you for a few days, but your boy came in time, I am very satisfied. Hey, it's because the boss did his best and died. Hurry up and slap a few rainbow farts in the past. Who would have thought that the Golden Dragon, which is known as the dominance on the border of the East China Sea, would be so docile in front of Chen Yang. Okay, let's get down to business. Tell me the specific information about this event. I saw Jinlong looking around, and after confirming that there was no one around, he leaned over curiously. Boss, did the third son of the Ivory Palace, Mu Baifeng, really come to you? Yes. Chen Yang drank plain water with a calm face. Boss, this Mu Baifeng has nothing to gain, and he came here so far. I'm afraid he has ulterior motives. I know, but we didn't talk about anything. We just tested each other's details, and then he invited me to participate in big events together. You agreed. Jin Long was stunned and asked. Anyway, it's not a big deal. This Mu Baifeng has a pretty good personality. We can just use him to understand the upper-level situation in Donghai, which will help us in our future development. Jin Long nodded subconsciously. That's true. But this person is mysterious, so we have to guard against him. Chen Yang patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry, come out to mess around, who doesn't have 100 hearts? Don't worry about this matter, tell me the information about this event. I saw that Jinlong had been prepared for a long time, and took out a thick document from his pocket. Boss, the administrator didn't reveal too much specific information about this event, but only said it was a major incident at the level of the East China Sea. These are the intelligence analysis of the activities and events I have collected over the years, and I should be able to draw some rules from them. Chen Yang looked carefully at the documents in his hand. I have to say that this information is transparent and clear at a glance. He didn't expect the carefree Jinlong to have such a skill. Boss, according to the summary of events in the four seas over the years, they can be roughly divided into 5 types of events. 5 kinds: pirate invasions, resource island refreshes, relics descend, situational events, regional wars. The pirates invaded, the resource island was refreshed, and the ruins fell. Chen Yang can understand. What is this scenario? Boss, the scene event is a special event of the Endless Sea, which is composed of story events that evolve randomly in the Endless Sea. Those who participate in the event can get rich rewards after completing the story. Roleplay. These 4 words popped out of Chen Yang's mind suddenly. That's right, that's pretty much what it means. Over the years, the scenarios and events have been relatively coherent, and they are also the best predictable activities. Chen Yang glanced at the plot events of these years on the materials. The plot of the East China Sea revolves around the 3 major sea kingdoms. Of course, these 3 sea kingdoms do not really exist, but the 3 fictional sea kingdoms of the plot. There is cooperation and war between each other. During the period, voyagers can participate in a certain camp, complete the event plot, and reap generous rewards. Of course, there are not only plots about the 3 sea kingdoms, but also plot exchanges with other 3 seas. And at this time, there is a high probability that it will evolve into the 5th type of plot event, regional war. In more common terms, it is a national war. There is already a lot of friction between the 4 seas, and the situation is the same as fire and water on weekdays. The regional war plot event is the officially recognized national war mode. During the opening of the event, the 2 parties or even multiple parties attack each other, plundering resources and sites. The plundered territory can be kept until the next regional war starts. Therefore, before each regional war starts, all major forces in the 4 seas will make preparations to jointly welcome the arrival of the regional war. Lay the foundation for the next division of forces. Only then did Chen Yang understand that it is no wonder that the division of power regions in the 4 seas often changes. It turns out that it is because of regional wars. Chen Yang put down the documents in his hand and asked, Jinlong, what kind of event do you think this event will be? I think there is a high probability that it will be a plot event, and it will be on a large scale. It is not impossible for it to evolve into a regional war. Hearing this, Chen Yang touched his chin. This is indeed a major event that cannot be ignored. For the specific situation, this subordinate thinks you can consult Bingshi's big sister head, boss. She is the Admiral of Beihai, and she should know more than me. North Sea. Although I have long heard that the girl Bingxia belongs to the North Sea forces, I don't think there is any difference between the various sea forces, but now that I have entered the Endless Sea, my feelings are more profound. Chen Yang immediately sent a message to the girl Bingxia. In just 5 seconds, the other side sent a reply. Honey, you came to the Endless Sea. Why didn't you tell me earlier? so I can pick you up. A black line penetrated Chen Yang's forehead. Can you be normal? How are you doing? Ask you something. I've been fine recently. With the blessing of your sovereign-class warship, I'm so majestic now. Take down the old fool of Luotian Kingdom immediately. By the way, you want to ask about the big events of the event. How do you know? Shocked, Chen Yang subconsciously looked at Jinlong. Boss, I really didn't tell big sister. Jinlong was aggrieved. Don't ask Jinlong, you fool, he is very loyal. It was our Beihai who also released the announcement of the event. You also have a big event in Beihai. It's not just us in Beihai. If the information is correct, the whole world will usher in a large-scale plot event. As for whether it will evolve into a regional war in the future, it is not clear. Talking. A message came from the opposite side. When the time comes, we will be a perfect match and work hard. Maybe my old lady will take the opportunity to soar into the sky and become the top power in Beihai. If you succeed, I will protect you from now on. Chen Yang cut off the communication with a dark face, and it turned out to be the troubled girl he was familiar with. Beside, Jinlong's understanding didn't run into trouble at this time. Chen Yang didn't pay much attention to this plot event, but now he has to consider participating in it. Not only to participate, but also to prepare well. Golden Dragon, let me ask you, what is the most important thing if you want to gain a foothold in the Endless Sea? Jinlong thought for a while and said, islands, fleets, resources, and talents. All are indispensable. Islands. Chen Yang did not expect that Jinlong would rank the importance of the island first. Boss, as we all know, the Endless Sea is so vast that even many people in the Four Seas region can't visit it once in their entire lives. To develop on such a vast sea, if there are only ships and fleets, it will be rootless duckweed after all, and it will be difficult to truly develop and grow. In this way, the importance of islands is reflected, because there is no continent in the Endless Sea, and navigators can only rely on limited land-like islands. Establish shipyards, factories, commercial trade, warship research, technology upgrades, etc. Then how to open this island? To rob, Chen Yang asked. After all, the ocean is infinite and the islands are limited. Jinlong replied. There are 3 ways to obtain islands. The first is plundering, the second is construction, and the third is event rewards. Plundering, as the name suggests, is the most direct and violent way to directly rob islands occupied by others by force. Building an island requires a lot of materials. Choose a shallower area to fill the sea to build an island. You can build a floating island or a permanent island. Island building is good and bad. The advantage is that you can design the island you want and build the island that suits you best. As for the disadvantage, it is 10 words expensive. It is not something ordinary people can afford. As for the third, it is the rewards in the event. If you are lucky, you can get the island rewarded by the administrator. Chen Yang thought about Jinlong's words, which contained a lot of hidden information. Jinlong posted, "Hey, boss, you don't have to worry about this. You have a base island, which is an island you can carry with you. There is even the legendary Azure City. If it is released, it will cause a sensation all over the world." Chen Yang understands that, indeed, he is a man who owns 10 base islands, which can be unfolded and placed in the Endless Sea, and can also be folded up and taken away at any time. Compared with ordinary islands that can only be fixed somewhere, it is simply not too convenient. It's no wonder that Bingxia was so surprised when she heard that the specialty of the Blue Sea was the base island. After reaching the Endless Sea, Chen Yang understood the preciousness of the base island. I saw Chen Yang took out a base island and put it in front of Jinlong. This base island called Fortress is lent to you. If you can upgrade the base island to level 3 within 3 years, this island will be given to you. Really, looking at the floating island in the transparent triangular cover, Jinlong was so excited that he almost didn't jump up. In an instant, with snot and tears, I wanted to kowtow to Chen Yang. Don't be too happy, it's not that easy to upgrade the base island, use it at your own discretion, don't expose it, otherwise I can't protect you. Hey, boss, don't worry, Golden Dragon will never embarrass you. Ding, do you want to consume resources to upgrade the Dreadnought class battleship? At this time, in the dock, taking advantage of the gap between selling ironclad ship blueprints, Chen Yang decided to upgrade all the old ships under his control. Chen Yong pressed his hands on the thick armor of the old and vigorous battleship Dreadnought in front of him. The Fearless, which has been with me the longest, has finally ushered in its spring. Upgrade. Chen Yong gave a low snort. The resources in the warehouse were rapidly consumed, and an equal amount of metal resources, wood resources, rubber resources and other resources began to be poured into this ancient founding father. Shrouded in silver light, the intrepid ship in front of me is constantly changing its shape under the talent of Chen Yang's battleship upgrader. The tonnage became larger, the armor was thicker, and the artillery was more powerful. In just 3 minutes, Dreadnought was successfully upgraded to an Orion-class Super Dreadnought Battleship, completing a huge leap. When the brand new warship fell into the water, the waves stirred up made the sea water in the dock turbulent and galloping endlessly. The hull trembled slightly, and Chen Yong sensed that there seemed to be a ship's soul beating in this battleship. In the endless sea, every ship sailing in the water has its own ship soul. But whether the ship soul can be awakened is a big unknown. At least 99.99% of the battleships will not be able to awaken their souls throughout their lives. Whether it can be awakened is not only related to the experience of a ship, but also related to the owner of the ship. According to the reports of some ship soul researchers, the stronger the ship owner's mental power and willpower, the greater the influence on the ship, and the higher the possibility of awakening the ship soul. Chen Yong pressed his hand on the Intrepid, and felt bursts of cheers jumping in the battleship. Is this the manifestation of the ship soul? Chen Yong muttered to himself. As the battleship that has followed him the longest and fought side by side for the longest time, Dreadnought has indeed experienced a lot. Even though Chen Yong later had stronger warships, such as Titan, Wyoming, King, Derflinger, but he still did not give up on this ship. As if sensing Chen Yang's sympathy for each other, the soul of the ship in the Intrepid seems to have signs of awakening, which made Chen Yong very excited. Dreadnought was made flagship again on the spot. If the soul of the ship can be awakened, then the combat effectiveness of this ship will be raised to another level, and it will gain the special ability of self-evolution. Next, Chen Yong upgraded the remaining Dreadnoughts and Titans to Orion-class Super Dreadnought battleships. The combat effectiveness has been greatly improved. It's a pity that warships of different departments cannot be cross-upgraded. For example, the Wyoming class of the Lighthouse system cannot be upgraded to the Orion class of the Empire system on which the sun never sets. It can only be upgraded to the New York class, or the stronger Nevada class Super Dreadnought battleship. Take another look at the new Super Dreadnought unlocking conditions: 15 technology points. Expensive, really expensive. Chen Yong didn't dare to use the 10 technology points he got from the last mission. He obediently put it in his pocket and planned to unlock a Super Dreadnought class battleship after accumulating 15 points. Although the Orion class is good enough compared to the Dreadnought class battleships, it is indeed somewhat unsatisfactory in the Super Dreadnought era. Now that the event is about to start, Chen Yong has to find a way to improve his strength again. System, do you have any tasks to release? You see, I've been idle for so long. Quote. Ding, the system screened out 3 side missions suitable for the current situation of the host. Submission. The Marauders of the East Sea. Plunderers of the East China Sea. Looting more than 3 fleets, or an island. Mission reward. 5 technology points, a random frigate blueprint. Submission. Gathering Maniac. Collecting Maniac. Collect more than 5 million units of various resources. Mission reward. 5 technology points, a random submarine blueprint. Submission. Donghai Detective Office. Donghai Detective Agency. Complete at least 1 special investigation task. Mission reward. 5 technology points, a random cruiser blueprint. To be honest, the rewards of the 3 side missions are very good, and the mission requirements are not too difficult. Chen Yong was heartbroken. Can you accept 3 tasks at the same time? System prompt. You can receive it at the same time, but the mission is limited to 1 month, and the CD time is shared. Please prepare the mission for the host. What if it fails? System prompt. If you fail the side mission, you will be punished for the week period of the mission. Within 3 months, all mission rewards will be halved. I'm going, isn't this punishment too harsh? Chen Yong estimated and pondered whether there is enough time for calculation. The looting task can be handed over to Jin Long. He is a professional, and it is estimated that he can complete it in less than a week. The collection task requirements seem to be a lot, but as long as you spend a little time and work hard, it is not difficult to complete. Besides, I have recruited so many new people. The 2nd and 3rd regiments add up to nearly 50,000 people. These people are sent out to collect resources, and the task can be almost completed within half a month at most. It's just that this investigation task made him a little confused. System, what is the investigation task? Can you give me a hint? System prompt. Investigation missions can be accepted in mission organizations such as the Business Alliance and the East China Sea Alliance, mainly for exploration, surveying and mapping, and intelligence missions. Chen Yang rubbed his chin. Business Alliance. Last time on Palm Island, he had a good cooperation with Zhang Hao from the Blue Sea region sent by the Business Alliance. He beat Bai Song hard and made a lot of money. I heard that Zhang Hao was also transferred to work at the headquarters of the Four Seas because of his outstanding performance last time, and his career has improved. Maybe you can ask him about the situation. Immediately dial Zhang Hao's private communication. He is a member of the Chamber of Commerce and enjoys hundreds of hours of free communication every month. Less than 3 seconds after the call, a familiar voice came from the opposite side. Zhang Hao's rather official greeting made Chen Yang smell familiar. After a few pleasantries, Chen Yang got down to business. Investigation mission. Zhang Hao asked rather strangely. Mr. Chen Yang, with your strength and prestige, do you still need to go to the Business Alliance to pick up the task? I have my reasons, just tell me if you have any. Yes, of course there are, and there are quite a few. Recently, many people in the Business Alliance, Zhao Lizao, said that they encountered a supernatural event at sea. This incident has caused a lot of noise recently, and many people have paid attention to it. The other party lowered his voice. By the way, Mr. Chen Yang also encountered a supernatural incident at sea, right? What supernatural event at sea? Chen Yang looked confused. Zhang Hao was about to answer, but Chen Yang interrupted him. By the way, are you in Donghai now? No, I just went to the South China Sea for a business trip. When will you be back? I have a business for you. As soon as Zhang Hao heard the word business, Zhang Hao immediately got excited. I have time, tomorrow, not tonight, I will rush to the East China Sea Business League. Mr. Chen Yang, do you need free delivery service? Chen Yang covered his head. This guy was indeed a little too enthusiastic. It was obvious that he had benefited from the cooperation last time, and this time he heard that there was another business, so he didn't bother to care about the trivial matters in the South China Sea. That's okay, open the door for me when you come back, I'll teleport to Wo. Okay, brother, wait for my news. When Chen Yang walked out of the dock, there was a lot of excitement outside. Newcomers who bought Chen Yang's ironclad blueprints are using his shipyard to upgrade their ships. This business is a steady stream of water, and over time, it is also a lot of money. Looking up, the endless sea is already full of stars. After a day of turmoil, the novice harbor at the exit of the Azure Sea has calmed down. The recruiting operations of the major forces are still going on, but after Chen Yang and Jinlong's quarrel, they have become a lot more frank. It's just that the price is higher, and it's impossible to use people as cannon fodder, and you have to promise various benefits on the spot. All the forces have spent their money for this big event. I hated Jinlong in my heart, but didn't dare to turn against Jinlong. Who dares to provoke a pirate who licks blood every day? He is also dressed in copper skin and iron bones, and is well dressed. Here, Chen Yang found the golden dragon. What, brother, are you going to the East China Sea Business Alliance? And to sell blueprints? Although the Sovereign-class battleship is stronger than the ironclad ship, but believe me, it won't be long before the Sovereign-class battleship will be imitated by various forces. So take advantage of this opportunity to make a good fortune. Hearing this, Jinlong was a little confused. But big brother, the drawings of Sovereign-class battleships were sold out on a large scale, and my fleet. Chen Yang grinned and took out a brand new blueprint. Of course you are ready. Orf next to him took the blueprint and grinned. Hey, not bad, Lord Nelson-class pre-Dreadnought Battleship. This is the most powerful battleship in the pre-Dreadnought era. When Jinlong heard this, he jumped up quickly and moved to the old man's side. Lord Nelson, he stared at the blueprint in front of him, and his saliva was about to drop. Lord Nelson-class pre-Dreadnought Battleship. The empire on which the sun never sets. 1905 shipbuilding program. Full load displacement, 17,820 tons. Length, 135.2 meters. Width, 24.2 meters. Draft, 7.9. Speed, 18 knots. Endurance, 9,180 nautical miles at 10 knots. Power, 15 Babcock-Wilcox type Agamemnon is Yarrow type coal-fired boilers. Power, 17,200 horsepower. Armament, 305 mm 45 times the diameter of the KX artillery 4.2 double. 10,233 mm 50 caliber guns 4 double mounts plus 2 single mounts. 24 76 mm guns, 2 12-pound guns. 5 457 mm torpedo tubes. Armor, 305 mm waterline armor belt on the ship's side, 305 mm on the front of the turret, 25 approximately 76 mm on the deck. Have to say, the Lord Nelson class is indeed the pinnacle of the pre-Dreadnought era. Although he was born at an untimely time, he was soon no longer seen by the battleship Dreadnought. But it also left a strong mark in history. After Jinlong got the blueprint in Chen Yang's hand, his hands were shaking. Compared with the Lord Nelson class, what kind of hot chicken is the Sovereign class battleship? He immediately looked down on it. I'll give you 500 blueprints first, and I'll give you a mission to help me loot 3 fleets, or a sovereign island. The task is well completed, add another 2,500 blueprints. Jinlong immediately beamed with joy. Plundering fleets and sovereign islands. Hey, boss, just leave it to me. This little thing will be done for you in minutes. Chen Yang nodded, he was relieved of Jinlong's work. Then, Chen Yang turned to look at Orf. Grandpa, I'm going out for a few days, you help guard the dock, I will leave 2 base islands for bonuses, and I will leave the business of upgrading the battleship to you. Orf laughed. Leave this trivial matter to me. Don't worry about it here. The 100 super dreadnoughts you left behind are enough to guard them. By the way, old man, help me give the 2nd and 3rd regiments a collection task, so that they must collect more than 5 million units of resources within a month. Collect resources. Orf really didn't understand. Just sell a few blueprints and earn a lot of money. What is the point of collecting resources? That's how it is. The first is that I want to exercise the coordination ability of the 2nd and 3rd regiments. Please work harder and help train these stragglers. Otherwise, such a scattered team will not have any combat effectiveness at all. The second thing is that I want to build an island. Building an island. That's right, the base island is precious after all, and it should not be exposed, so the island was built to cover the existence of the base island. With such an explanation, the old man understands. Even if Chen Yang had other secrets, Orf didn't bother to find out. He just needs to focus on his work. After explaining these things, Chen Yang went straight to the direction of the East China Sea Business Alliance. Whether it's a business or a mission, he wants it all. At the same time, Gray Edge, a small sampan was gliding hard. There was no wind, so only relying on the support of the oars, the speed of the boat was extremely slow. Behind the small sampan, there was a person with an ugly face, all over his face. Can't help but growl. Chen Yang, Qi Qian, you 2 fools, one day lousy Aocean will make your life worse than death, trample you all under your feet, just wait for me. Yes, at this time, the man with ragged clothes and messy hair on the old sampan is Aocean. Back then, in the Azure City, in order to fight against Chen Yang, I chose to join Qi Qian. As a result, Qi Qian saw that the situation was over, so he ran away. I thought that Qi Qian would take him to the outer sea together, but when he was halfway through the teleportation, he was thrown down and fell into this strange sea area covered in white mist. Fortunately, I was lucky and was rescued by a group of wrecked sailors. Now I am trying to slide out of the gray area. Although it is difficult, I can barely see hope. Sudden, the dense fog in front suddenly rolled up, and the whistling wind sounded. Before Aocean could react, a huge wave hit and almost overturned the small sampan. What the hell? On the prow, the man with the scar on his chest narrowed his eyes, and slowly drew out the blade in his hand. The other sailors took out their guns one after another and looked around vigilantly. The white mist rolled around at a very fast speed. There's something in the fog. Someone yelled. Boss, you must have encountered a ghost in the sea, right? Where are the ghosts in the sea? It's all nonsense. Next second, several sailors with guns were frightened and sat down on the small sampan. Old boss Aoshin, who was sitting behind the small sampan, couldn't help showing a look of astonishment. What the hell? The boss turned his head sharply, and the dense tentacle struck him in an instant. All I could see was a vague image of a wooden boat wrapped in gray mist. Mom, what kind of monster is that? Help, ah! The boss screamed, and was dragged into the gray mist by the tentacles. Immediately afterwards, there was a creepy chewing sound in the gray mist. Monster, run away! Several sailors were frightened. As a result, the gray tentacles struck again and captured all these sailors. Aoshin trembled, clutching the oar in his hand, but it couldn't give him any sense of security. I saw the gray mist creeping slowly, getting closer and closer. A dead body of a sailor with his chest pierced suddenly appeared in front of Aoshin. The corpse creaked and turned its head, as if being manipulated by someone. The pale face said word by word, "I smell a familiar smell on you. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."